Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. I'm certainly very, very pleased by the turnout here tonight. Thank you for being part of our city government. We certainly appreciate it. And if you're watching at home, we thank you as well. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, and we'll start our meeting, as we always do, by introducing you to your City Council.
Council members Neitzert.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Starr.
Present.
Staley. Here. Erickson. Here. Erpenbach. Here. Kiley.
Here.
Councilors, thank you. In Sioux Falls, we start our City Council meetings with an invocation. We're very, very blessed to have Pastor Dennis Thomas here from Celebrate Church. And Pastor, thank you for being here. And what we'd like you to do is to stand, please, for the invocation, and then please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor?
Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you have formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Lord, thank you for your eternity, for your making this universe, this world, and this place for us. Thank you that you are watching over us. You are keeping us. And we pray that we may remember you and remember your place in our lives. We ask for those, Lord, who have suffered tragedy this week. We ask also for those who are our police, our fire, our first responders. You would see them, oversee them. And we ask for you to be in this meeting. Give us wisdom and direction that only comes from you. We thank you for who you are. Make us better people because we see you, and help us to see you as you are. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In Sioux Falls, last Friday, we experienced tragedy firsthand. First and foremost, our sympathies go out to the McMahon family as they mourn the passing of Ethan. He certainly will be missed. We also want to give our absolute best wishes to the Fodness family, especially Emily, as they work to recover from this incredible challenge. As the pastor just stated, we also want to express our appreciation to the first responders, the other team members, and the agencies that provided aid, and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stewards that have done so much to help. And certainly the hundreds of thousands that prayed during such a difficult time. We don't do this very often, but it is with this in mind that I would ask all of us within the chamber tonight, along with everyone that is watching at home, to recognize and remember them with a moment of silence. Thank you. Testing. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Truly appreciate it. Kathy, would you mind coming forward, please? Thank you. And Kathy, please, I would love that. Thank you. Kathy, please introduce yourself along with your students. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Bracknellsbauer, one of the organizers of the Human Rights Day essay contest for 7th and 8th graders. And the award ceremony is this Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Multicultural Center, and it's a public event. It's a wonderful community event. And the students will be reading their winning essays. We have 2 out of our 6 winning writers right here, so they can introduce themselves. And so tell us your name, what grade you're in, what school you're from, and the name of your essay. How about that?
I'm Autumn Tao, and I'm an 8th grader at Edison, and the name of my essay is A Refuge from the Storm.
I'm Nathan Cool. I'm in 7th grade, and I'm from Sioux Falls Christian, and the name of my essay is A Universal Right, A Safe Place to Call Home.
As you might have guessed, one of the the particular topic from the Human Rights Declaration that we're featuring this year is the right to seek a safe place to live. So it's a very hot topic, and the students have been very thoughtful in their essays. You'll be impressed if you come in and join us on Saturday.
Not yet. Hey, all right, go ahead. Go ahead. Don't leave us. Come in. Thank you. Don't leave me. I do have a proclamation that I would love to read on the city's behalf, and certainly on your behalf as well, Kathy. Whereas Human Rights Day is observed around the world each year on December 10th, which is the anniversary of the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, and has helped people all over the world to learn about their rights as human beings. Whereas the people of the world have made significant progress on human rights that can be recognized and celebrated, such as more school enrollment, reductions in hunger and in child mortality, and progress on gender equality and the empowerment of women. However, more needs to be done to ensure basic human rights for all people. Whereas special events that support matters of human rights, including the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize, are often held on this day. In Sioux Falls, we celebrate this day by holding an award ceremony for the Human Rights Day essay contest for 7th and 8th graders. Whereas this year's topic is the right to seek a safe place to live. And our 12 and 13-year-olds have been writing essays expressing their feelings and thoughts on this important topic and raising awareness about the Declaration and human rights in their classrooms and in their own homes. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim on December 10th, 2016 as Human Rights Day in Sioux Falls, and congratulate the winners of the essay contest and encourage the community to observe the day and to work for human rights for all people every day of the year. Now, let's give them an even bigger round of applause. Councilors, thank you. We'll now move on with our meeting with our consent agenda. Any motions, changes, any discussion? Yes. Councilor Starr.
I'd like to pull the item for the public parking, the contract with Journey Group Companies. It's on the top of the second to the last page on the back of our agendas with the list of contracts.
Thank you, Councilor Starr. We'll certainly do that. Any other items of discussion?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Council Chair Rolfing has made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Council Vice Chair Kiley. If no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Councilors, our regular agenda, any motions or changes to that?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second. Kylie?
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to approve our regular agenda tonight, seconded by Council Vice Chair Kiley. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That has also passed 8-0. Thank you. Again, folks, welcome to City Council meeting. I'm certainly glad that you're here tonight. This is an opportunity for you to engage the council on really any topic that is of importance to you. Now, I think we certainly realize there's probably a couple of topics that are going to happen on the agenda later on. There will be an opportunity to discuss those items then. But if there's other topics that are important and you want to discuss them with the council, come forward. Just really 2 requests. Give us your name, as well as we would ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Would anybody be interested? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is David Zokaitis, and earlier today the mayor introduced the topic of human rights. That's something I'm very interested in. And a few weeks ago I saw a television drama that violated rights in such an appalling manner that I had to come to my favorite venue, that's right, my favorite venue, and talk to the city and the councilors about human rights and how important they are and how not everybody in our culture values human rights. I watched a crime show and I was amazed at the underlying message, and the underlying message is that human rights have no value and police do anything they want to. This is really bad for a democracy, but it's great if you want to fire up a dictatorship. That's the theme I saw. In one scene, a lawyer was rather eloquently and peaceably talking to police about his civil rights, and the official response, arrest this man. That's not what should happen in a reasonable society. You should be free to express your civil rights to police officers. But the guy was arrested, and this teaches anybody who's watching the show that they should not protest their rights. Bad thing to happen. In a different scene on the same show, there was a casual mention of solitary confinement as though it was a normal activity. We don't want to abuse prisoners with solitary confinement, but in this show, it's just a reasonable thing to do. In another scene, oh, this is a great one. Police wanted to search a building, but they did not have any level of suspicion. They couldn't get a search warrant, so instead of doing what they should and collecting evidence, they condemned the building and sent in a SWAT team. Terrifying people, stealing their stuff, displaying maximum force, but no suspicion. Now, the problem with doing all this in a TV show is maybe it's going to happen in real life, and we don't want that to happen. In a different scene, police officers were described as heroes. Well, maybe sometimes they are, but I mean, I look at a police officer and I see a man. I don't necessarily see a hero or an angel or a devil. They're people doing a job. That's pretty much all we have. And we don't want to teach excessive allegiance to civil authority, because that's unrealistic. A certain level is good, but certainly not to excess. Oh, and in a different scene, they needed to get some cooperation out of a prisoner who didn't want to cooperate, so they just banged him around a little bit, terrified him. That's assault, but it's official strategy, at least in this show. In a different scene, the police lied to a suspect. I tend to value honesty and integrity. If you teach people to lie in one context, before you know it, they'll be lying in a different context. And if you want to teach police officers that they are heroes, they could at least be honest. Different scene, lying to the public. Not good. We want to be able to trust our government, and if the government, through the police officers, lie to the public, what do we have? Not good whatsoever. Oh, and in scene H, they outfitted a prisoner with a shock belt. Basically a remote control taser. Kind of risky. If you've got your button on that finger, how long is it going to be before you spill your coffee and bump that finger and there goes your prisoner vibrating all over the floor. If you make assault too easy, it happens too often. Something we really should not try to do in this country. In another scene, police had to stop somebody quickly, so they put a few bullets in their chest. I remember in the old days, police used to stop with just one, and now it's multiple. You would think in 2016 we'd have non-lethal alternatives. Better wrap it up here. One of the problems with this whole business is it's teaching people that our rights are not important. And another problem with it is that police here and our local government learn from what they watch on TV. I've seen cases where we do not have the right to trial and brought them to your attention. And my recommendation is to turn off your TV and do something athletic. And as usual, there is beauty in the world, and with that I have to bid you a good evening.
Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. Got multiple things in my pocket here. I see that on the agenda you have a first reading for the recording the Parks Board meetings. I think this is wonderful and way past due. I've been pressuring for this for several years. The Parks Board is a volunteer board that determines the spending of millions and millions and millions of dollars of our budget each year, and they get to do it in a meeting that's not recorded, only it's minutes. So I fully support this. And as for the argument that this is going to cost the city extra money, I find that very laughable, because they can have the meeting right here in Carnegie where all the cameras exist and they can record it. If they want to record it at different locations, I don't see a problem with that either. We have several, 3 to 4 press conferences a week in every corner of this city about moving cones off the street or the dog park, or we're building a restaurant and a hotel out the golf course. And I believe that the Parks Board meetings are way more important than any of that stuff. So I hope that you pass the first reading tonight and move it on to a second reading and make the board accountable for the money that they spend. I want to talk about something else that's been concerning me for quite a while. Something we call the Fourth Estate. Now, what's the Fourth Estate? The Fourth Estate is the media. They call them the Fourth Estate because they're not a part of government. They're not a part of the executive, the judicial, the legislative branch. They're a separate part. They're there to inform the public. Now, there's times when government doesn't agree with them very often. Most of the time when government doesn't agree with the media, they don't agree with them because government got caught. And so all of a sudden, the media is wrong. Well, there's also a way to solve that problem. The media contacts you as a government official. You have a choice. You can say, at this time, I have no comment. Or you call them back and you give them an answer. If you don't do that, a lot of times the news will print what they have. That's not because they're doing it wrong. It's because they have deadlines and actual jobs. They get paid for what they do. There's been a lot of criticism lately of the media. And I've seen this criticism rise because the media is actually getting it right and catching our government officials doing things wrong. If I was a government official, I would not respond to that. I would not cry about them doing a story or stomping our feet. I would actually try to call them back and get the story right. Respond to them. Or even better yet, maybe do your job right. And then the media won't write nasty stories about you. So I hope that we remember the duties of the Fourth Estate. They are there to be a watchdog. They are there not to rubber stamp everything you do and to make sure that the public is hoodwinked into something that's not the truth. Have a good night.
Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Rose Bailey. On November 16th at 4 o'clock, beautiful afternoon, I took my usual walk around the neighborhood. At 1517 South Frederick Drive, 1 block from my home, I was viciously attacked by an American bulldog. She was not leashed and lunged at me, sinking her teeth into my right thigh and knocking me down. She then attacked me, tearing my clothing and a second bite in my thigh. The neighbor, Kathy Buchholz, was working in her yard, came running with her leaf blower to beat off the dog, putting herself at risk. The young man, the owner of the dog, was able to pull the dog off me and get her locked in the yard. My back was sprained, my thigh was bleeding. Mrs. Buchholz called the police and the animal control. They did not come. I was taken to the ER. Animal control came at 7 p.m., made a report, and called me later to tell me the dog was current on her shots. Put those down. The doctor did not stitch the wound at that time, felt it needed to be drained. 5 days later, I was admitted to Sanford for surgery to open and flush the infection and started immediately on IV antibiotics. I spent 4 days in the hospital suffering from trauma, pain, and infection. Prior to this incident, I had no medical issues. I took no medication. I was a very healthy individual. I have suffered from trauma, severe allergic reaction to the medication, and pain injury to my back, and enormous medical bills. The dog is still at home. The owners complied and got liability insurance and agreed to keep her contained. I've not been able to contact the dog owners, although they were told to contact me. Because my time is limited here before you, I'll be brief. The dog is declared vicious, but still allowed to live next door to the little children. Do you have those pictures on that? Okay. To live 3 blocks from a children's daycare center. They take the children to Riverdale Park, right near where the dog is kept. I pray that no child needs to suffer the gain or the disfigurement or the death from the inaction of city government. The city ordinance need to have some teeth put into it. And don't hide behind the state statute. Include in the utility bills copies of the city ordinance and the consequences. Provide resources and assistance for victims and not use Marcy's Law as an excuse. A special task force to review the number of injuries that are caused by animals. Budget funds to provide adequate staff for these agencies. Requirement of animal owners to carry insurance information and be financially responsible. Special training, a requirement of owners of special breed of dogs. Require a license to breed and sell pups. Neighborhood watch to monitor. Vicious animals should not be allowed near schools, child care facilities, and public parks. Sex offenders are restricted to certain neighborhoods. Traffic citations are consequences of negligence. More important, my testimony here tonight may prevent a child from suffering pain or disfigurement or even death. I'm asking you as representatives of the people for your help. While your sympathy may be a comfort, your action will speak louder than words. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Catherine Buckles. I'm the one that was in my front yard when Rose was attacked on November 16th. I'm not going to repeat what Rose has said. The dog in question I had issues with on August 31st. My brothers and I were going out to my car to go to my husband's funeral when an 8-year-old boy was chased by this same dog onto my property and onto my yard. While my brothers went towards the dog, I went towards the house to get my gun. This dog has a history. It needs to be put down. Rose, I don't know if she wants you to know, she did not tell you how old she is. She is 83 years old. We have a lot of elderly people in our neighborhood. We have tons of children. I live 2 houses down from where this dog is housed. We were told by animal control after it was declared vicious that we should monitor it. Rose and I should monitor that they're putting a muzzle on, that they're putting a lead on it when they bring it in and out of the house. I do not feel that is our responsibility. This dog needs to be terminated before it kills someone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Appreciate that. Welcome.
I'm Bruce Danielson, Sioux Falls. First off, at the last city council meeting, just prior to the meeting, there was a potentially dangerous incident that happened, and I want to thank the city council security staff for helping me with that situation. It'll be handled in court, but I wanted to say thank you to them and the great job they did. I was looking at some things, and I've been really pushing, and all of you know that I video record the meetings. I have a couple cameras running back there, and I have this one that cost about $60. And I've been asking for the last couple of years about being able to just do this, set it down like that at a city meeting, and start recording. And that's all it takes. And we'd have meetings recorded for $60 or $100 or $200. At that point, it doesn't matter. Every one of the boards and commissions the city has should be recorded. And it makes you wonder, since the city can't seem to do something this simple, it must be broke. But somehow they find the money to pay the cost of a mannequin video and the very, very expensive equipment that was used to do that. So I would really like to see the Parks Board and all the other boards and commissions of the city recorded. I'm still going to keep going to them. If you don't want my view of how the meeting turned out, then you better start recording it yourself and put it up on YouTube. So I was going to ask Dave to put this up on the screen, because I was looking at the consent agenda and noticed a couple items. So I asked our city clerk's office for copies of the contracts yesterday. I was told to contact city purchasing or the finance department to get them, so I tried calling them. No one answered the phone in 10 minutes. The city operator was wonderful. She did a great job trying to help me. Nobody answered the telephone in Tracy Turbeck's office. Was Tracy and everybody gone from the office yesterday? I couldn't find them. With no luck, the mayor always says, call Julie Wilson in his office, so I did. She took the information, but I received nothing. And I'm here to say thanks for nothing. My interest was in the $24,999 drone contract of dubious need, since the city already has a drone they can play with and create multimedia videos with. My question was, what gives? I just wanted to see the contract to see what the story was on it. Then I looked a little further up, and I see my other interest was in the Journey Group contract for $99,375. Yesterday, and it was missing from the city's website, so I wanted to see it. Today, it's for the construction manager at risk for a building that's not really in the budget. And if you notice, it's already dated, and then it's crossed off. This administration can't seem to fill out dates on forms correctly, or did they really want to slide this past the city council without anybody noticing? We kind of sort of building another building without noticing. We know the mayor wants another party before he leaves office, and we also know who's going to have to pay for it, us. Wasn't it in the plan to hold off on this building until many other questions were asked? You know, is it time to get our clipboards out again? I got a whole stock of these. We got 6,400 signatures in 17 days this year. And this time I'll make sure it's the right form, and we'll make sure that there's a lot of other changes that happen. So will this administration ever start being open about their schemes, or do we have to start the 17-month countdown clock to a new government hoping for the best? Thank you.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Tim Stanga. I also look at recording the park board meetings. Not only will it help the citizens of Sioux Falls realize, you know, that probably half the budget deals with parks and recreation. And being able to let the city council watch what's going on in these meetings and to find out what is being done ahead of time versus finding out a month or 2 months later, I think the city council should know. But I also want to go a step further. I also want to be able to have a representative from each district that Pat can have a representative from his side, Greg can, Teresa can, I don't care, the rest of you guys can too. But I think that all parts of this city should be represented on this board, and that everybody has a voice. Because I don't think the voice is being heard from this side or this side, but it's mainly from this side. And I think that there should be a representative for each district, and I will push to have that done.
Thanks, Tim. Folks, anybody else want to welcome?
Sarah Broussard, Sioux Falls. As you know, I've been working vigorously for a week with prostitution, human trafficking, and pimping in alleyways, sex crimes happening in alleyways, and shooting of heroin. Pettigrew Heights and Cathedral. I have 6 calls for shoes on a power line, and some people didn't know what shoes on a power line meant. Went out there, and the gangs was taking over the neighborhood and refused to take the shoes off the power lines. Michelle's district is in. They've called Michelle. Michelle's never responded. I've been working in her district vigorously, and she can laugh all she wants, to get down this crime that is happening here in this district. Human trafficking of kids in your district. Had to go against the landlord because he wanted to put 5 and 6 feet gravel in the middle of a street. On 8th and Spring, I had to get code inspection to tell him he could not do that, to pick it up. Christine, we talked today. Thank you for talking to me today. Teresa Staley, Greg Neitzard, and Marshall. These are all the people that have taken their time to listen on these streets, Mayor. When you had someone break into your neighborhood, you had the police there, right? Duluth and Spring is like another little Chicago here. I just busted someone today from the Arch for doing sexual activity while he was shooting up heroin. So, if you don't believe me, you go on Duluth Avenue, you go on 9th and 10th of Spring, and you look to see what's all going on over there. I understand that the chief of police has been here for a year. We don't have enough policemen on the police department for us. But Mayor, it falls back on you. You have to get this crime under control. I am fighting pimps and prostitutes every day of the week, telling them, no, you're not putting shoestrings on a power line. The police department didn't even know what shoes on a power line means. So I'm gonna educate the public on this because it's happening on the west side of town also. When shoes on a power line come up, that means that drugs are being dealt from that area, or a gang has initiated territory in that area. Carolyn Avenue, pounds of cocaine. Pounds of it in these motels and hotels. I'm going to do a petition drive. I expect and hope that people say no living in hotels and motels within 30 days. It is drug infested. It's becoming the projects in these motels and hotels. The crime is here. It might not be in the southeast district of town, and it might not be in the other rich sides of town, but it's here. Mayor, I'm asking you, I said this last year. What did I say? There was going to be a murder and it happened. What did I say last year? If you read back on the recordings, we're going to have shoes on the power line. What's going on? Shoes on the power line. If we do not get this under control in Michelle's district, we're going to have prison gangs shooting and fighting and shooting each other right here on Duluth and Spring Street before the new year ends. I can see it happening here. Now, this is reality. This is what we need to get a grip on, is the crime. I don't care about smoking. I don't care about the park's beautiful and the flowers painted so beautiful on the boulevard, or how many chairs are we going to put up, or toilets in an event center. This is reality here. We're talking about kids. 60% of the refugee kids right now are in foster care because of human trafficking and drugs of their parents as of right now. Every week I will come here and I will pinpoint all these problems until something gets done about it. I have heard from the police department that the chief of police is very smart and educated. But in 2018, when we get a new mayor, we're going to see how much of that changes. Thank you so much.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council tonight? Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Kadir Aware. I just want to first to say to City Council and the people sitting in this room, I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke, and nobody in my family smoke.
Kadir, is this involving the smoking ordinance later on?
Yes.
Okay, if you could just wait until that time, we'd appreciate it.
How long does it take?
Thank you. I'm sorry?
How long does it take?
How long until that happens?
Take that?
Well, it depends on how much more public input we have, sir.
Okay.
And I don't control that. I wish I did.
No, that's okay.
I've asked. But, folks, as you can see, I don't control it. Would anybody else want to engage the council really on any topic that you think is important? Thank you. Appreciate it. We're now going to move on to one of the items that was discussed, I guess, in public input. Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping that someone from Community Development, I think Mr. O'Neill is here to address us a little bit, and I want to get a feel for what the department's trying to do with this and how we're moving forward. So if you could just give us a brief overview of what the contract is entailing and where we're at with the parking ramp.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Brent O'Neill with the Community Development Office. For some time, an evaluation of the downtown parking system and parking needs now and into the future do show the need for more capacity and additional spaces downtown. We had a study done probably a little over a year ago now, done by Walker Parking Consultants, a reputable firm, really advising us on how we plan for our growth in the downtown parking system. So it has been a goal of ours to construct a parking ramp in downtown Sioux Falls. As part of the budget process in 2016 in September, there was a discussion about the capital improvement program for this project. And within that, there were some adjustments to the budget. There was a substantial amount of money left in the budget to continue to plan for the project and come back to the council with greater details. This contract is one of those steps in being able to provide the council more detail on the project we're considering. This contract is with the Journey Group companies of Sioux Falls. They're also known as Sioux Falls Construction. One of the primary and most urgent needs for us to have this contract in place is to have that construction expert on our team being able to talk to us about the designing of the ramp, and more importantly, being able to help price out some of the concepts that we look at. So it's a real critical step for us to be able to come back to the council and marry up some of the designs we're looking at, as well as knowing that a construction expert has looked at those and has been able to run estimates on what that project will cost. It's our goal. This is, probably one of those last steps in that planning process that would get us to a regular communication schedule on the council about the ramp and what we anticipate in our progress going forward.
I'm good. Councilor Starr, thank you. Any other questions or comments, sir?
I'm good for
thank
we're
you.
ready to
Thank
make
you.
a motion.
Would you like to make a motion, sir?
I wanted to make sure that if there was anyone else from the council that had any questions first, but otherwise I'm ready. I'd move to defer this item to the Land Use Committee, January 17th, 2008 or 17.
Councilor Starr's made a motion to defer this item to the Land Use Committee till January 17, 2018?
17, sorry.
17. Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Urbanbach. Any discussion, folks?
Yes.
Councilor Chair?
Can I ask why?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I punched it out. I'm sorry, Councilor, but I know this has been in the works. They took out part of the budget last year, indicating to us that they were going to go forward with the planning on this, and that things we need the parking ramp, we need these things, and why are we thinking of delaying this for a month or two when this was in the plans originally?
May I answer? Yep, that's okay.
Councilor Starr?
Yes, I just really feel very strongly that the public needs to be involved in this process. We're late getting the contract put together. We're rushing this through before the community has a chance to buy in and understand exactly what we're doing. And I think if we're moving forward with this, our committee process is the perfect way to do this. And I think the Land Use Committee would be the right way to handle that and starting the public process so we understand what we're doing, because it's important. Yes, in the Walker study, we did say that we needed to move with additional parking downtown. What we do, I think, as a council is we've encouraged that there's a public-private partnership that goes along with this as well, and I believe that that needs to be discussed at the committee level first to get an idea of where we're moving forward before we ask for deliverables from our partners at the Journey Group.
May I?
Yes, Councilor.
Brent, how much public input have we had on this project already? I mean, it's been a project in the public domain for, I hesitate to put a time frame on it, but for some time, and I know, in particular within the downtown community, it's discussed, if not monthly, weekly.
And we have had one RFP on it already? Where
Yeah,
people had input on that?
Yeah, and we went through a process last year that ended in spring of this year. And I mean, so we have had a lot of discussion on it.
Yeah, and that would include people from the outside, not just internal.
Correct.
Correct. So I guess I see that we've had this already. We will have plenty of opportunity to approve contracts again, to look at plans before they go forward, et cetera, et cetera. And public will have plenty of input when the RFP or RFQ or whatever is completed. I see no reason to stop this process right now.
Councilor Neisert.
So here's the deal. I didn't have this presented until just a little while ago, but we removed the bonding from the CIP because we said we wanted a more detailed plan. This gives them the authority to bring the groups on board who are going to get the detailed designs. They're going to get us the numbers we need. If you go back to before I was on the council, the indoor pool. During the election, there was discussion about a number, and a number was thrown around. But there wasn't detailed designs at that point. So there was a number that was thrown around. Later, they brought on a construction I don't want to say construction manager, but they brought people on that got the detailed design. And then they had a firm number. Once you have that detailed design, you can say, this is what it's going to cost. And it's not going to cost any more than that. So that's what we asked for. We said we want to see more detail before we are going to put this in the CIP. So now we're objecting to them spending the money to get the more detail that we want, so that we can present something more than a napkin sketch to the citizens. I'm just perplexed. We're kind of going in circles. So I think we need to move this forward. There's multiple gates coming up.
See, we do have a motion. Yes, we do.
Motion and second for this to go to Land Use Committee.
Roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
No.
Rolfing,
No.
Selberg,
No.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
No.
Erpenbach,
No.
Kylie.
No.
That has failed 2-6. Would anybody want to make a motion to approve this item?
Rolfing.
Council Chair Rolfing has made
Second.
that motion, seconded by Councilor Nitzert. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
No.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That has passed 7-1. Thank you. Item 25.
Item number 25 is the transfer of a 2016 retail wine license from Fuji Sushi and Hibachi LLC, Fuji Sushi and Hibachi, 2801 West 41st Street, to Fuji Sushi Hibachi of Sioux Falls Incorporated, Fuji Sushi Hibachi of Sioux Falls Incorporated, 2801 West 41st Street, CUP not required. Item 26 is a transfer of 2016-17 retail malt beverage license from Fuji Sushi and Hibachi LLC, Fuji Sushi and Hibachi, 2801 West 41st Street, to Fuji Sushi Hibachi of Sioux Falls Incorporated, Fuji Sushi Hibachi of Sioux Falls Incorporated, 2801 West 41st Street, CUP not required. Item 27 is transfer of 2016-17 packaged malt beverage South Dakota Farm Winery license from Gas Barrel LLC, Gas Barrel, 2500 West Madison Street, to Quick and Easy LLC, Quick and Easy LLC, 2500 West Madison Street, CUP not required. Item 28 is a new 2016-17 retail malt beverage license for Sioux Falls My Place LLC, Sioux Falls My Place LLC, 3005 South Carolina Avenue, CUP not required. Item 29 is a new 2017 retail wine license for Sioux Falls My Place LLC, Sioux Falls My Place LLC, 3005 South Carolina Avenue, CUP not required. Item 30 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Catering America, Chef Dominique's, to be operated at Poet, 4615 North Lewis Avenue, for an employee social on December 7th, 2016.
Jamie?
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. Items 25 and 26 are transfer requests due to a name change. Item 27 is a transfer request due to a change in ownership. Item 28 and 29 are license requests for a new hotel. And item 30 is a special one day. Many of the applicants are here tonight if you have any questions for them.
Jamie, thank you. Councilors, any questions or comments or motions?
Move approval. Rolfing.
Second.
Council Chair Rolfing has made a motion to approve all these items, seconded by Councilor Staley. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson, Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 31.
Item 31 is deferred from the City Council meeting on November 1st, 2016, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1200 East 3rd Street from the S1 General Institutional District to the C3 Commercial Community District, petition number 5397, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends denial 4-3.
Jason Bieber, representing Planning and Building Services. On behalf of the applicant, they are requesting to defer this to the January 3rd, 2017 City Council meeting. We continue to work with them on trying to find a solution for this old Joe Foss schools.
Jason, thank you. Councilors, would anybody want to make a motion to defer this item until Tuesday, January 3rd?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Brex made that motion, seconded by Councilor Selberg. Thank you, Councilors. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 32.
Item 32 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 92, Health and Sanitation, by adding a subchapter entitled Tobacco-Free Policy for All City Property.
Jill, welcome.
Great, thank you. Thank you, City Council. I'm Jill Franken with the Sioux Falls Health Department. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the entire project team, including Director Don Kearney, who is unable to be here tonight. He is on medical leave for needed shoulder surgery. So tonight, you have an opportunity to pass an ordinance that can prevent disease and save lives. You have the opportunity to decide that kids, family, and the community as a whole visit city property for any reason that they will be tobacco-free. You know, admittedly, public health policy, like you're voting on tonight, is an investment very different than other policy you may typically vote on. It isn't bricks and mortar, but rather it is a significant investment in our human capital. You know, I want to answer questions raised at the first reading to give you more information, but first I need to clear up one misconception. This ordinance does not criminalize using tobacco. Violation of any city ordinance is not a crime, and that is well established in state law. To expand now on some questions that have been asked, I want to first go into golf courses. Golf courses are often considered unique recreation sport venue within our park system. Like other sports and recreation, tobacco is not used, where tobacco is not used, it should be seen the same way. We should be able to consider our sports and recreation facilities of golf courses just like we do any other sports and recreation facility. And why is that? Well, just like any other sporting venue, young children learn the game there. High school teams practice and compete there. Families play together there. Another reason is the fantastic return on investment immediately. That Great Life has submitted to you a letter of intent to create tobacco-free policies on their city courses, which will ensure all public courses in our community are tobacco-free. So that was one of the first questions that was asked. You also received a letter from SMG stating their support for this policy at the event center. And some questions have come around how does the event center get managed under this tobacco policy. As indicated in their letter, tobacco-free environments are part of a healthy, vibrant economy. Other communities where SMG manages facilities have tobacco-free policies, and they continue to enjoy great business success, along with a healthy, safe experience for their patrons. So now regarding some other city properties, I just want to make it clear that this only applies to city-owned properties and not other public spaces like residential areas, streets, and areas like downtown Sioux Falls. But it does include places like our libraries, places like the downtown bus depot, places like the transfer station on Louise. Those properties, by the way, have had requests from patrons asking them to be tobacco-free. So now let's review, to kind of review what we've talked about in the past, but provide a little more information, the 5 critical reasons to approve this ordinance tonight. The first reason, it is good public health policy. The health and well-being of our residents and visitors must come before all other considerations. The graphic you see here shows a declining cigarette consumption in the U.S. since the 1960s. Each decline corresponds to public action, from removing tobacco ads from TV and radio to the introduction of graphic warning symbols and eliminating tobacco use from air transportation. A review of the 10 greatest public health achievements in the 20th century was completed by the American Journal of Public Health. And they stated that each achievement was influenced by policy change. One of those top 10 being the identification of tobacco as a health hazard and reducing its use. The second rationale for policy that reduces both the health costs and the economic costs of tobacco use. You've asked specific questions regarding the differences in mortality rates. I think it was at first reading there was some questions about mortality rates. I think Councillor Staley, you may have asked this. So here you can see the examples of mortality rates. You can see here that tobacco causes more deaths than alcohol, drug overdose, suicide, motor accident, homicide, and fires combined, and then some. Even with those combined, tobacco causes more than twice, almost twice as many deaths. Yesterday we shared with you, I believe all of you should have gotten this information, that tobacco is responsible for nearly 18% of the deaths in Minnehaha County. And compare that to alcohol, which is responsible for 1.7. Tobacco use rates are about 20% in Minnehaha County, and the rate of chronic drinking is 6%. All of these health concerns warrant attention, but it is not an either-or proposition here. Through Live Well Sioux Falls, we look at reducing and impacting physical activity, increasing physical activity. We look at addressing nutrition. We look at reducing the risks for chronic disease, such as high blood pressure, for example. However, right now, tonight, we have the opportunity to take a step forward to reduce the devastating effects of tobacco use. Next are additional 2 reasons. 3, implementing this policy can motivate users to quit. And 4, it can prevent others, especially our kids, from ever starting. A recent Ohio State University study identified that smoking bans are the most highly effective public policy tool for lawmakers who wish to reduce smoking among young people. Remember that the overwhelming majority of people, more than 80%, do not use tobacco. 70% who do want to quit. Tobacco-free environments support them. Today, we know nearly all individuals who use tobacco started before they were 18 years old. Here in our own state, 900 become regular users every year, and 1 in 3 will die prematurely as a result. And 5th, comprehensive policy without exceptions ensures consistency in public education and facilitates compliance. As I stated earlier, violating city ordinance is not a crime. If someone does not comply with policy, they are not a criminal, just like you are not a criminal if you get a speeding ticket. Of particular note, the proposed ordinance is specifically crafted to ensure that the first enforcement is actually a verbal request for voluntary compliance. That means in any situation, if someone is observed using tobacco, the first approach would be to go up to that person and ask, did you know this property is tobacco-free? And then follow that request by that information by a request to abide by the policy. You know, it's extremely rare for Sioux Falls City Ordinance to have this type of provision written in an ordinance being proposed for the request to be made first before we ask them to comply. But that's actually in the best interest of our residents and visitors, so they're clearly informed of the policy and asked for voluntary compliance. And we know from current tobacco-free youth recreation policy that respectful compliance will almost always happen. If an individual should refuse to comply, it could lead to law enforcement, but that has not been our experience, and that is certainly not the experience of many, many communities who have passed tobacco-free outdoor policy. A reminder from other meetings, more than 1,200 municipalities across the country have already regulated tobacco outdoors, and we've modeled this policy from their success. Education, awareness, and tobacco prevention messaging will be the primary focus. A comprehensive policy will be the key to successful community education. So, City Council, we've given you the science, we've shown you the evidence. Numerous studies have been cited in our presentations as well as shared in documents provided to you, and each week bring new studies forward confirming the dangers of tobacco exposure. You know, you've expressed that you've received many communications from over 100 community members. I think that's kind of a number that I've heard, asking you to support this policy. We've only received 7 emails to the city from individuals that are opposed. We saw 6 supportive letters to the editor to citizens, from citizens, parents, physicians, and those were all supportive of the policy, and 1 was opposed that came in. And this policy received the endorsement of the Argus Leader Editorial Board. We are aware of more than 25 letters of support received by you from many organizations, those who manage city properties on our behalf, along with experts in the field and private citizens. And there are many individuals here tonight in support of this policy. So to close, I leave you with this family story, which so perfectly underscores the importance of the decision you're going to make tonight. This is Jeremy Allward, his wife Andrea, and their daughters Nora, Violet, and Lucy. We received a copy of the letter Jeremy sent to each of you, telling his story as a heart survivor, and how his daughter Nora follows a similar journey with her heart condition. He can't be here tonight because happily they are at Nora's Christmas program. But he wanted to remind you of this very important decision before you. Living with heart conditions, Jeremy and little Nora cannot be exposed to tobacco smoke. Certainly, Jeremy wants a healthy environment for his daughters, but Jeremy and Andrea want the same thing for all our children and grandchildren in our community. Tobacco is inherently dangerous. There is absolutely no safe level of tobacco exposure. To place any other factor ahead of our residents' health discounts the grave public health impact of tobacco use. And it discounts the wealth of evidence showing effectiveness of tobacco policies in saving lives. Lastly, our project team has been commended for their efforts of this very important public health issue. We appreciate the feedback. You do have a dedicated city team that thoroughly researches science and brings forward best practices to advance health of our community. However, we have to accept these compliments on behalf of all the residents and community partners who have said to us, we want this for Sioux Falls, and who will say to you tonight, Council, please pass this ordinance to make city property tobacco-free. They are the ones to recognize for their desire to see our quality of life improve in our community and be second to none. And you will do that by saying, we hear you, and to pass this important public health policy. Thank you.
Jill, thank you. Folks, this is an opportunity for you to engage the council about this topic before I turn it over to them for them to do their work. We'd really ask you to do just, again, two things. Come up to the podium, state your name, please, and we would ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Also, when we have nights like this where we know there's going to be public testimony for or against, again, we welcome it at the highest level. But there is one thing that we would request as a council team, and that is if you could try to eliminate as much duplicative comments, we would appreciate that. We know you're passionate about these things. We appreciate it one way or the other. But repeating the same thing over and over again certainly has some impact, but not near the impact that you may think it has amongst the team. So with that in mind, please come forward, welcome, and thanks for being part of tonight's debate. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. My name is Steve Buckland. I'm from Sioux Falls. Some golfers who smoke on the golf course include Dustin Johnson, Arnold Palmer, who just recently died at the age of 86, Jack Nicklaus, who's 78 years old, Ben Hogan smoked on the golf course, and John Daly, of course, smoked on the golf course. Some presidents who smoked on the golf course included Dwight Eisenhower, John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. Not to mention leaders like Winston Churchill and our own Joe Foss. Under this proposal, none of these men would be allowed to smoke on a Sioux Falls public golf course. I don't know about you, but if smoking helped JFK deal with the Cuban Missile Crisis, or Winston Churchill stand up to Hitler, or Joe Foss to shoot down 27 enemy planes, or Jack Nicklaus to win 18 majors, then I'm all for it. Dr. Michael Keppen observed in today's Argus Leader that there are dangers for non-smokers associated with being within 6 feet of a smoker. The shortest holes at Prairie Green are the 4 par 3s, all of which play at about 170 yards for a player like me. That means that the players in the group on the green in front of me, on the tee box, would right now be about the same distance that we are from the public library downtown. So if you'd like to step outside with me, I'll have a friend light up down there, and we'll see if you can smell the smoke, let alone have it negatively affect your health. Humor and history aside, there are serious consequences that attend the imposition of this measure. If you implement it, I was going to say I would join Great Life, but apparently Mr. Walsh has changed his mind about smoking there. But if you implement this policy, I won't join the city courses again. And I have belonged and paid $1,000 on my punch pass for every year for the last 14 years, I think. $160 for my daughter's pass a year, $100 on a new wedge at Elmwood this summer, and at least $300 on food and beverages. I've also brought non-pass holders with me on numerous occasions to play our fine courses and to spend their money. Perhaps, rather than adopting such an extreme policy that brings with it the threat of lost revenue and goodwill, we could prohibit smoking within 50 feet of the clubhouse and on tee boxes where more than one group is waiting to tee off. That's a compromise that should be agreeable to all. And by the way, I have anecdotal evidence that you can smoke at every one of President-elect Donald Trump's golf courses. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. And thank you as well. Welcome.
Peter Hassenstein from Sioux Falls.
Sir, could you just repeat your name again, please?
Peter Hassenstein.
Thank you, Peter.
And I'm coming here to speak against this because I think it's wrong. I have handed out a flyer or a copy here by a PBS interview of Ronald Bayer, professor of Columbia University Mailman School of Health. Basically, he says he has studied smoking bans. And he says, I have discovered the evidence is really weak. This man was considered enough authority that PBS would interview him. He thinks this thing about affecting childhood smoking, he says, is nuts. You read the article, it's very, very clear for a man who knows more than you or I about the subject because he studied it. To me, it seems very, very un-American. Now, most of our forefathers came here to avoid authoritative government, oppressive government. This is, I think, very oppressive and authoritarian to put onto the people. I don't think that smoking in open air is it'll dissipate before it's gonna ever hurt anyone. Number two, the OSHA has stated that they didn't think secondhand smoke is harmful. Now, this is the authority of the federal government. Now, I just think what you're doing here is very, very wrong. It's un-American, and there is no empirical evidence. According to this man who has studied it, he says the evidence is extremely weak. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council tonight? Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Jennifer Tingley. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for the City of Sioux Falls and Falls Community Health. I could speak to you in my position as the Chief Medical Officer. I have a degree in medicine. I'm a family medicine physician. I have a degree in public health, so I could speak to you from the medical side, the public health side. You have heard these, the studies, you've heard the accounts, and I'm not going to do that tonight. I could speak to you as a mother. I have 2 young children, and I can tell you the last time I walked out of the Premier Center at an event, we walked into a cloud of smoke. I do not want that to be normalized for my children. But what I'm here tonight to speak to you as is a physician of a patient who joined me here tonight. She was actually going to speak, but I'm going to do it for her tonight. This is Linda Johnson. Linda's sitting right up here, and I'm going to tell you her story because I take care of Linda down at Falls Community Health. I met Linda 3 years ago when she moved here from Omaha. Linda grew up in a house of smokers. Her father was a smoker. Linda started smoking around the age of 17 or 18. She smoked about 1 pack per day and had done that up until about 3 years ago when she had to be sent to the hospital in respiratory failure. She spent almost 3 weeks in the hospital, and from there moved up to Sioux Falls to be closer to her daughters who live here, and also to hope that she could get some health care. Prior to that, she'd never seen a physician for her health care issues. If she went in with a cough, she was given an inhaler to use, and never was given the diagnosis that she carries with her today, which is end-stage emphysema. Linda has to use her oxygen tank with her. She has to have it at all times. When she first came to Sioux Falls, she was actually in a palliative care / hospice program. Linda did not think that she was going to live for another year after moving to Sioux Falls. Through the very good work of her pulmonologists here in town, Linda is thriving. She has received the treatment that she has needed to control her disease. And she actually just went down to Omaha to meet with a very skilled surgeon for a possible lung transplant. Linda's looking forward to life at this point. We started doing healthcare screenings like mammograms and colon cancer screenings because we think she's going to make it. But what I can say to you is that Linda's condition right now, she can be triggered very easily into having very bad outcomes for her health if she is surrounded by any amount of cigarette smoke. And in her own house right now, she has a daughter who is smoking. And my concern for Linda is that any secondhand exposure, whether it's in her house or outside, because we don't know the science between how much is too much and how little won't show up. We don't know that. But Linda has to test negative for nicotine and nicotine breakdown products in her system for the next 6 months in order to continue on with that lung transplant that we are working very, very hard for. And my concern is that if I can't tell her how much smoke to avoid, and certainly avoiding it within her own house is of the utmost importance, I don't know what else to tell her. So I am asking for the City Council to support this ordinance because I know that if we can keep her free from any smoke exposure outside of her house, and we're working very, very hard on the exposure inside her house, I think Linda has a chance. And on our way over here, Linda actually asked me if I could set up an appointment for her daughter because she wants to start down that road of Chantix and quitting smoking. So that's what I'm here, and I'm thankful that you listened and are taking up this ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Doctor, thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, counselors. Nice to see you. I'm Dr. Dave Kapaska. I'm a family physician and also the regional president at Avera McKinnon Hospital here in Sioux Falls. Tonight I'm here to urge you to pass this ordinance to create tobacco-free environments on city property. Creating a tobacco-free environment on city property sends a clear and powerful message that you hold the health care of our residents and visitors as a very high priority. As a healthcare provider, Avera's goal is to provide comprehensive, cost-effective, quality health care. As an employer, we strive to provide a work environment that also provides that healthy, safe environment. And that's why we have a tobacco-free campus. In addition, we believe that it's our responsibility to support our employees' well-being, not only when they're at work, but also when they're out in the community. That is why we invest both time and resources to support community efforts that enhance healthy lifestyles. The societal costs and consequences of tobacco use are shocking. We see it in our Avera clinics and hospitals every day. Half of all smokers will die prematurely. from a tobacco-related disease. And for every person who dies from a smoking-related illness, another 20 with smoking-related illnesses that cause great suffering for them and for their loved ones, and at great cost shared by all of us. As a healthcare system, it is our responsibility to educate our patients and their families about the hazards of smoking, to prevent them from taking up a highly addictive, expensive, and unhealthy habit, and to encourage people to quit for their own health, as well as for the health of their family members. We know that tobacco-free environments encourage people to quit and keep our youth from ever starting to use tobacco. When we help people achieve their best health, they are able to go back to work, to be active, engaged, and productive. In other words, investing in prevention of disease is a workforce development activity. A healthy environment contributes to the economic development and vitality of our city. Please vote yes on this very important issue. Working together, we can create a healthier environment for our people to live, work, learn, and play. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you. Welcome.
I'm Dr. Ben Solomon. I'm a medical oncologist at Avera. I'll just speak specifically from my own point of view. I think there'll be several folks here talking tonight. I think the city has a unique opportunity here. There are not probably that many opportunities that city council persons have to specifically impact behaviors that can influence downstream health outcomes. I am kind of the downstream person. I'm the person who a patient comes to see after they've been diagnosed with a cancer. And every day, you know, I sit in the office and see at least a few patients that have a cancer-associated, or I'm sorry, smoking-associated cancer. And to be able to make an impact on that in an upstream manner at the top end of the process is a unique opportunity that I think you're faced with tonight. And so I think, you know, if you look back, I just want to make a couple of points, because I think points will be maybe made on both sides of the fence about the association of smoking with various health outcomes and conspiracy theories about whether that's proven or not. That's absolutely proven, without a doubt, that smoking causes lung cancer. It's the #1 cause of lung cancer, far and away beyond any other associated cause. And that's not to mention other non-cancer associated risks, such as heart disease and stroke, et cetera. You can look at some of the smoking rates across the country and see some good correlative evidence that smoking cessation programs have influenced downstream cancer diagnosis decades later. If you look at the peak for smoking rates in men, and look at that peak and then look 10 to 20 years later, we've started to see a downturn in lung cancer rates in men. The peak in women smoking has not actually been reached, or is just becoming to start to plateau. So we haven't actually seen that in women, but we will see it. And for you to have the opportunity to impact a downstream health outcome from a population standpoint, I think is a unique opportunity that you're faced with tonight. And so I would urge you to consider voting yes on this measure. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ben, thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Huther, members of the council. My name is Paul Hansen. I'm the president of Sanford USD Medical Center here in Sioux Falls. The dangers of tobacco use are well documented by a number of health organizations, scientific researchers, and even the EPA, having classified the environmental tobacco as known as a human carcinogen. Every day in our offices, hospitals, emergency rooms, our healthcare providers spend a great deal of time and effort helping our patients to quit smoking. The majority of patients want to quit, and the ability for us to create tobacco-free environments will help them along with that journey. Ensuring that city properties are tobacco-free will also benefit our kids. The reality is that most people become addicted to tobacco at a very early age, and in fact, more than 90% of adult smokers began smoking while in their teens, and more than half became regular smokers on a daily basis before they reached the age of 19. We must provide an environment and the education to keep our kids from ever starting tobacco. There is a broad consensus, even at a global level, that the most effective way to reduce tobacco use is to ensure that all sectors of the community join in efforts to include policy, systems, and environmental changes. This includes widespread education about the dangers of tobacco use. This includes referrals to cessation services like the South Dakota Quit Line. And this also includes policy approaches that regulate tobacco use. You have an incredible opportunity to advance the health of our residents and our community by passing this ordinance to create a tobacco-free city properties. You can do so knowing that you have the support from your local healthcare systems and many other community organizations wanting to make Sioux Falls a city that enjoys a strong business climate, a dynamic visitor industry, and a quality of life that is second to none. You'll be creating a healthy legacy for generations to come. Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you do as city council members for this community.
Doctor, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Dr. Amy Elliott. I'm a member of the American Cancer Society State Leadership Board. I'm also one of the senior directors and scientists at Sanford Research, and have created a career in studying the effects of environmental exposures such as cigarette smoke on outcomes such as stillbirth, sudden infant death syndrome, asthma, and other neurodevelopmental disorders. I'm also a professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the School of Medicine. As you know, tobacco is the #1 preventable cause of death and disease in South Dakota. In a recent study, it was published yesterday in the Journal of the American Medical Association, they found that even very minor cigarette smoking, which they defined as even less than 1 cigarette per day compared to non-smokers, increased the risk of an early mortality by 64%. Those who smoked between 1 and 10 cigarettes per day had an 87% higher risk of earlier death than never smokers. So how does this relate to this public policy? The best way we know to help bring those numbers down is to support people who are trying to quit, but also to help young people from ever starting. Smoke-free ordinances help do exactly that. Not only is it reducing the second-hand smoke, which you often hear about, but the additional benefit is it lowers the visibility of role models who smoke, fewer opportunities to smoke alone with others, diminished social acceptability, and social advantage for smoking. So I would urge you, the City Council, you can send the message to our community right now by passing this ordinance. It's an important public health moment for our city. The message is that tobacco will not get in the way of our community enjoying our city venues, and that we value the health of our residents, workers, and visitors, that children should see adults enjoying our golf courses and parks without using tobacco. I'm also asking the council not to make any exceptions. Having a strong, uniform policy, frankly, will make it easier for people to follow and easier to enforce. So thank you for your time.
Dr. Amy, thank you. Welcome.
Tom Walsh, Great Life. Our mission at Great Life is to enrich the lives of families and individuals through golf, fitness, and healthy lifestyles. The decision you make here will set a tremendous example for a lot of us businesses to back it up. I started this thing about 3 years ago because we've got to make a difference in people's lives, and especially young people, kids, and families. So please do what's right.
Ms. Walsh, thank you. Welcome.
Councilors, my name is Melissa Nesdahl. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read my letter that I sent you. Those close to me will tell you that I am not at all political. I do not like division, but that is what makes speaking on this issue easy. One of my favorite titles is that of mom. My husband and I are blessed to raise 3 beautiful girls in this thriving community, which thrives because you as leaders ask what we can do to make this city better. I know many of you are parents, so I want for just a second for you to imagine taking your child or someone you love to the park. They're playing, they're dancing, they're having fun like any kid should, and they suddenly say, "I can't breathe," and cross their hands on their throat. The air looks clear, but smoke lingers. Panic is across their face, and it sinks into your heart quick. You grab them, you run, and you give them the inhaler as fast as they can so that they can breathe well again. It's a sinking feeling. This was our experience at Jazz Fest this past summer with my then 8-year-old Hannah. We chose to go to Jazz Fest because my father-in-law, who had lung cancer and died a few weeks before, was a lover of jazz. And for my girls, that was a connect for him. And so we were there enjoying that time until that very scary event happened. We don't blame Jazz Fest for this because it doesn't matter if it's 1 cigarette or if it's 20 cigarettes. The smell is enough to cause immediate lung compromise for my daughter. I have asthma. Our other 2 daughters have reactive airways as well, although not as finicky as Hannah's. And all of us endure some level of consequence from secondhand smoke in unhealthy air. I think there's a tendency when talking to people about this issue to think of it as an either or. Either you're for tobacco users or against them. That is not at all the case. We all know and love people who use tobacco. I think this is very much a both and ordinance. Both the people that want to use tobacco can continue to use it. Those who don't want to don't have to in their private spaces. But when we come together in public spaces, we can be in an environment where everybody flourishes. The question at hand is not your opinion of tobacco users. It isn't even about being a taxpayer, because we are all that too. The question is, do you believe city-owned property should be a place all residents can safely enjoy? My Hannah and all other families with Hannahs are watching you closely tonight because your vote impacts our ability to fully enjoy this city. Tonight you have a vote, a chance to impact this generation and generations to come. What will your legacy be? Thank you.
Melissa, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Just talk really loud.
Thank you.
My name is Hannah, and my grandpa died this summer, and he loved jazz music. He inspired us to go to Jazz Fest. I was playing in the jumpy houses, and we decided to go by the stage. I was feeling fine at first, but then more people came. I saw cigarettes everywhere I looked. I felt very tight in my chest. My chest just got tighter and tighter. We quickly rushed to the van, and I was screaming and yelling, "Hurry up, I can't breathe." It was very scary until I got my inhaler. At school, they say smoking is dangerous, and if you smoke, your lungs will look like gross meatloaf. Also, if you are next to a smoker, your lungs may look the same. I think adults should vote as they teach us so that everyone is safe outside.
Thank you, Anna. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Dylan Majors. I'm 10 years old and a 5th grader at St. Mary's here in Sioux Falls. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I think you should make our city property smoke-free. Adults should be good role models for us. I want to learn how to golf, and I do not want to breathe in non-healthy air while I am on the golf course. I went to a Skyforce game with my family, and when we came out, we walked right into a cloud of smoke from people smoking by the door. It stinks, and if we are close enough to smell it, that means the smoke is going into my body. When my brothers and I played at the park across the street, we wanted to breathe in clean air and not have to worry about all the litter from the cigarette butts on the ground. I don't think smokers are bad people, and I don't want them to feel bad. I just want them to be healthy, and I want to stay healthy too. If smoking is not allowed on our city property, people might stop smoking or smoke less, which doesn't just benefit us, it benefits them too. Thank you for listening to me tonight, and I hope you vote yes to make our city a healthier place to live.
Thank you, Dylan. Welcome.
Oh, yeah, sure, thank you. No, my name is Thomas Vey, and I'm sorry I'm not dressed up to come and address the council, but I just got off work. I just found out this afternoon that the second reading was coming up today. I travel a lot for business, and I miss a lot of this, unfortunately. But do we have to have this on the screen throughout the whole thing? Okay.
Thomas, you look great.
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead and
Mayor,
speak. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
We have heard a lot of pulling on our heartstrings, kids with asthma, things like that, and I'm sorry. I'm sure you're great parents, and I'm sure those kids will probably never smoke because they have great parents. That's the idea. It starts at home. I didn't want my kids to smoke. Oh, and in full disclosure, I smoked for 28 years, and I've been tobacco-free now for 9. Put them down, haven't picked one up since, and I'm glad that I did. But I don't want you guys to make a decision based on heartstrings, based on emotion. We're talking about outside. And tonight was the first time I got to read the ordinance. The ordinance is a little shallow in my view because it gives you the opportunity to determine where you're going to put these signs up when you decide, like say Rib Fest. By the way, Rib Fest, everybody's smoking ribs. I'm not going to necessarily take my child with asthma to Rib Fest and be surrounded by 10 smokers going. If you do, then that's not good parenting, and or maybe they're not allergic to the smoke, regardless. Is it at that time that you're going to say, well, it's being held on city property, we have to put a sign up there now and not allow any smoking in there? As far as the Premier Center goes, maybe you should designate an area farther away from the front door. There already is a state law, no smoking, bars, restaurants, public places like that. This is a great city, and it's not full of rude people. And if someone sees this fine lady getting into a concert or something, if she were to ask somebody to not smoke and that might have been smoking close to her, I'd bet you they'd probably put it out and move, because this is Sioux Falls. It's full of beautiful, great people. If Great Life wants to ban smoking on their golf course, let them. It's a private business. All the hospitals, no smoking. I know my wife works at one of them. No smoking on their campuses. They have the right to do that. But if I want to go walking in Yankton Trail Park some Sunday afternoon with no one around, with a friend of mine that maybe smokes cigarettes, it's not harming anybody at that particular time. Yet, if a police officer drove by, he could be, hey, you got to leave the park. And what designation is there? Because it's not in the ordinance. What is a city playground? I see you changed that. What is, where city youth activities take place? It's kind of vague. And I think you should be a little more specific about that before you go ahead and vote yes on this. So like I said, I'm not for people being harmed by smoking. And oh, by the way, there's over 200 diseases, cancer included, that's caused by oxidative stress. Ask your doctors. There's over 100 universities around the world right now studying oxidative stress. 2 major pharmaceutical companies. It's your environment, the phone you use, the food you eat, all the cars we drive and the exhaust that come from them. Are we going to ban cars from going into public places? Some of them need more emissions tests than others. I just think that this is a road down more socialistic type government than it is about a health related issue. I would gladly move if I still smoked. If kids came to play in a park and I was sitting next to a swing, I would gladly move. And I think most of the citizens of Sioux Falls would as well. So I'm asking you to vote no on this, and maybe lean towards more things like the Premier Center and other places where you might designate areas to smoke, and or be a little more specific in the ordinance than just city property. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thomas, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Heather and city councilors. My name is Lori Hilmo, and I'm here tonight to give my opinion of the ordinance to ban smoking on all city property. I smoked for quite a long time and stopped and started again too. Although I have cut down a lot over the years, I am ready now to stop completely for my family and my own health. I've thought a lot over the last few weeks about this ordinance and have just a couple of points to share. I smoked briefly in high school, and the only place I could go to have a cigarette was a local park that my family lived by. It was pretty secluded, and no one ever said anything to me when I was there. Things are different now, and would be much different if young people didn't have access to smoke on city property. Young people will find a way to do what they want, especially today. But by the city making this a reality, that no one can publicly smoke on city property, it might not be so easy. There are those that say this ordinance infringes on people who smoke and their rights. I thought a lot about this too, and what I decided was we all have rights. But when those rights affect others directly, then they need to be addressed. For example, if a person's sitting in a park a few feet away from another person and having a cup of coffee, that's not affecting the other person at all. Now, if that same person lights a cigarette and starts to smoke, even in the outdoors, it can infringe on the other person's rights to sit in the city-owned property and enjoy the fresh air. Both of our hospitals put smoking bans in place on their properties, and we also have a ban on smoking in restaurants and bars, but in place of a number of years ago also. I don't believe either of these things were established to knock people who smoke, but instead to ensure a healthy environment for all. No one can say anymore that they don't know the dangers of smoking for a person who does smoke and for those around them. The research is just too overwhelming. I believe that our city has the right, the authority, and the responsibility to make sure that everyone in Sioux Falls has the opportunity for a healthy environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lori. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Taylor Promis, and I'm currently a senior at O'Gorman High School. I'm a leader of Tattoo and SAD, otherwise known as Teens Against Tobacco Use, and Students Against Destructive Decisions. Together, we do activities around the high school, and we teach at elementary schools across the city to teach our students to make good decisions in regards to tobacco use and all other destructive decisions. I am here tonight as a representative of the Tattoo and SAD community, simply to make known our support of the tobacco-free policy for all city property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that as well. Welcome.
George Hahn, Sioux Falls, lifelong resident. I greatly respect everything that the medical professionals have brought to light. This is nothing new. I have read this before, and many of you have, I'm sure. My friend Pete Hassenstein cited some information that I also have studied about the very negligible effect of secondhand smoke in particular within a few feet of its being generated. We have a lot of non-smoking facilities in town, including major businesses, both medical campuses, the VA, and others. We cannot smoke inside, but of 177,000 residents in Sioux Falls, there are 100,000 adults. 20% of those people smoke. That is 20,000 potential violators. How are we going to enforce this? The ordinance itself is vague, it is non-specific, it does not have any latitude. It's very poorly worded, quite frankly. If at a place like Rib Fest, where there's smoke all over the place, there are some people who simply won't go. I am one of them. I don't like the smell of all that. I don't smoke. I think smoking is heinous. It accelerated the death of both of my parents, and many of my friends have died from lung cancer, but they chose to smoke, and that's their lifestyle. I suspect we've got a little big brotherism going on here. We're trying to dictate lifestyle, perhaps legislate morality. That does not work, and we have proven this as a city, state, and nation time and time again. There has to be a middle ground, a compromise where the ordinance specifies, let's say we have an orange circle, several of them at major public facilities. You go and smoke here. Then people know to avoid those areas for themselves or their children or those with any breathing or asthmatic conditions. Smoking is legal. It has been legal forever, despite all of the objections, the laws, the advertising bans, and so forth. But it is a legal activity. And to put 20,000 residents in Sioux Falls in jeopardy of violating an ordinance is an absolutely absurd thing to try and police. I don't think it can be done. Somebody's going to come out of the police department, pick up a cigarette, puff it, oops, here comes a cop. Going to zip across the street, across 4th Avenue, so they're on county property. Policemen can't touch them there. Has there been any coordination with the county about authorizing the county to enact such similar bans? Are there any thoughts about joint city-county facilities? The ordinance is vague. It needs work. If you're going to reconsider this, I encourage some people that understand how to author something to come up with a better plan of action. Thank you for your time, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, George. Thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Terry Torkelson, General Manager, Denny Sanford Premier Center and Orpheum Theater. You're probably surprised to see me here tonight, but about 20 years ago, when I first moved to Sioux Falls and started at the Sioux Falls Arena when it was the only building out there, I was tasked with the opportunity to write the rules to prevent smoking in the arena. So back in the 90s, you could still smoke in the building. Was it easy? No. Did people not like it? They didn't. But it was the right thing to do. Today, I'm here to say this is the right thing to do. Will it affect us? Absolutely. Will people not buy tickets? Some won't. But some don't because they have to walk through smoke. Will groups not come? Probably not. But probably everyone will still come. Will an artist smoke on stage at some point? Yes, they will. Will we deal with it at the time? We will as best we can. Change is coming. There are buildings out there that, from NBA buildings like where the Charlotte Hornets play, that's a non-smoking campus. They worked in partnership with the city. That's why we haven't done this before. We did think about doing it when we opened the Premier Center because having people come in and out of a building like that, there are opportunities to transfer contraband or whatever. We try and monitor it as best we can, but the way that building's set up, people go out one side, come in another. We have security guards out there, we have police out there, but something could happen. So it gives us the opportunity to have the city's backing to not allow people to leave the building once they come in. And it's key. We're currently working with Homeland Security to update our security policies, and this would fall in line with what we're doing with them. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Terry, thank you. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Good evening. Good to see you all again. Darren Smith, Washington Pavilion Management Incorporated. At our November Board of Trustees meeting, our board had a full and healthy discussion of this proposed ordinance and ultimately voted unanimously in support of the ordinance as proposed. We have a large board. I feel that it is very representative of the community in a lot of different ways. So again, good discussion and voted unanimously in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Heather, council members. I'm Patty Abdallah, and I'm representing the Sioux Falls Park and Recreation Board here tonight. In 2013, we were proud to implement the first tobacco-free policy around youth activities. And that policy has enjoyed great success. At that time, we heard from members of the council that they were interested in being part of tobacco prevention efforts in the future. And now that future is here. Park and recreation agencies are critical stewards of public health, preserving and promoting access to parkland and other recreational facilities that bring together people of all genders, faiths, ethnic backgrounds, and abilities to pursue physical activity, healthy lifestyles, and leisure experiences. Currently, over 1,266 cities across the country have made health a priority by making their properties tobacco-free. Prohibiting tobacco consumption and use will improve individuals' health, and it will protect others, especially children, who are easily influenced by adults from unhealthy behavior and dangerous exposure to secondhand smoke. Additionally, this prohibition will prevent dangers posed by discarded cigarette butts and filters. Most of these never decompose and can harm plants, grass, and animals and leach into our water sources. The National Park and Recreation Association recently released a statement in support of tobacco-free policies for outdoor areas, stating that such policies create healthier recreational environments that promote physical activity, encourage personal development, and minimize exposure to tobacco use and secondhand smoke. Promote less tobacco use and initiation among child and adult visitors to properties where a policy exists. Create more public awareness about the dangers of tobacco use and secondhand smoke. Create cleaner properties that contribute to a high quality experience because they are free of tobacco, secondhand smoke, and cigarette butts, and result in fewer carcinogens, toxic metals, and poisonous gases from the secondhand smoke and tobacco products that impact human health, worsen air quality, and impair physical activity necessary to fully enjoy parks, recreation, and entertainment venues and other places. You will hear this time and time again tonight. Tobacco is the leading cause of preventable death and disease in the United States and exposes users to immediate and long-term damage. Each day, tobacco consumption and use steals time, health, money, energy, and life away from 42 million American adults and 3 million middle and high school students. Yes, I said 3 million middle and high school students. The City of Sioux Falls is uniquely positioned to interact with community members, families, and visitors on a daily basis. Whether that is here, at a library, at the event center, or at a park, we must provide healthy places to conduct business, to learn, to socialize, or to enjoy recreation and leisure activities. As stewards of our community's health and well-being, please vote yes to extend the tobacco-free policy to all city properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else? Please come forward, sir. And if I can, so we're certainly going to let you testify. You've done a great job. You have, and we don't have to be done. I'm not saying that. For the most part, there has been non-duplicative comments made, and the council truly appreciates that. We're nearing 1 hour of testimony. Very, very quickly, I don't think it's, I've got a page and a half of reasons for and reasons against, and they have been, I've tried not to duplicate those. I'm not going to read them. I don't think I know the council's been paying attention. But again, I'm going to encourage you as we continue, please try not to duplicate what's already been stated, whether you're for it or against it. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and esteemed City Council members. My name is Frank Gernick. I'm the Executive Director for Dakota Alliance Soccer here in Sioux Falls. We have approximately 4,200 participants ranging in ages from 3 to 19. We've recently made the commitment to incorporating adult soccer into our programming as we see soccer as a lifestyle sport. Our mission is to teach fundamentals of soccer and instill a passion of the sport, but it's also teaching teamwork, sportsmanship, responsibility, and good health. We want to provide opportunities for our members that will support their desired level of play. We were supportive of the parks policy in 2013 to create tobacco-free youth recreation. That's been a good one, not only for our players, but for our spectators. As a youth sports organization, it is important for us to do anything we can to keep kids from starting to use tobacco and to provide positive role modeling. Kids aren't in the parks exclusively. They also go to the library, stampede games, pheasant games, concerts. They golf with their families, they visit the pavilion, and they use our transit system. There are so many opportunities for us to be positive role models for them and to ensure that the environment in which they live and learn and play is a healthy one. Extending the current policy to create tobacco-free city property is a critical way for us to show kids and their families that the city puts their health and their well-being as a top priority. Our kids and all of our residents and visitors deserve to access city facilities and events in an environment that is tobacco-free. You can see how many people have been here this evening, and they are all supportive of extending this. Please do the right thing for this generation and for future generations. Please vote yes to make city property tobacco-free. Thank you for this opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Frank. Folks, welcome.
My name is Dave Meyer. I am the chair for the Sioux Falls Board of Health. The Sioux Falls Board of Health is composed of 7 members appointed by the mayor, and it is our responsibility to exercise general supervision over the health of the city. Some of you feel that this ordinance criminalizes smokers, and some of you see this as an issue of liberty and taking away people's freedoms. The fact is, the majority of your constituents don't use tobacco, and you need to be considering their freedom to be able to access city property without exposure to tobacco. We're not taking away anybody's freedom to use tobacco, all right? You're not doing that. They can do it wherever they want to. We're just asking them to not do it on city property, okay? You can text, all right? But you can't text while you drive the car. We as a Sioux Falls Board of Health unanimously support this ordinance and urge that you do also. The health and well-being of our residents must always be your concern. Please pass this ordinance without any exceptions. It is your duty. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Jim? Bruce Danielson. I wanted to change the subliminal message that was just up on the screen because I don't think it's fair to this whole discussion. Should it have been either blank or it should have just been the building that we're sitting in. I think it's wrong to be doing the marketing in this entire process when we have people here trying to talk about this issue. I agree with Thomas and George that were up here. I'm a fervent anti-smoker. I hate cigarettes. I hate tobacco. 49 years ago in 1967, my father gave me a birthday gift of quitting smoking. He never picked up another cigarette after that. I can't stand smoking or tobacco use. I especially hate the litter. We allow drinking of alcohol. It's legal. This is a nanny state intrusion into our privacy, into our public, and into the 20% who are old enough to smoke. I really want you to just vote this down and get rid of the citizen abuse that is tied to this. You need to narrow down the objectives if you must vote on something, but this is too intrusive. The price of tobacco. You know, I went to a gas station one day, and I hadn't helped anybody buy a pack of cigarettes or a carton of cigarettes in years. I just won't do it. And I saw $56 for a carton of cigarettes. And I go, is that a joke? And they said, no, that's what they are. And the woman right behind me goes, yeah, and I'm trying to quit now. The price of cigarettes is going to do more than this ordinance will ever do to stopping smoking. I'm driving down the highway, and I can smell somebody smoking 2 or 3 blocks ahead of me. I just hate the smell of cigarettes that bad. I can even tell you certain brands of cigarettes because I have to work in offices where people would smoke certain ones, and that image, that nostril stink is still in my nose. I can't get rid of it. But this is wrong. I know that this is I want people to quit smoking. I know all these good people that are sitting in here want people to quit smoking, but it's legal. If you're going to have a problem with cigarettes, tobacco use in this town, just go ahead and write a ban for all tobacco in town. Don't let anybody sell it. Don't let anybody do anything. But in the meantime, it's legal. Let this thing stand. Get on with what's really important in this town and quit being a nanny state. Thank you. And this really should stay up there for the rest of this discussion to counter the other one that was up.
And I don't know what was it. Folks, I just spoke with Council Chair Rolfing. I asked for his opinion in terms of, are we starting to get duplicative comments, and we are. Again, I think you've done a tremendous job tonight, giving great reasons for and giving great reasons against. What I'm going to recommend is that we discontinue this dialogue. Council Chair, I think you agree with that. Yes. Councilors, if there's any other thoughts, but I'm looking around the room, it looks like you've got at least an idea of where you're at. So with that in mind, I would like to discontinue it. Mr. Stenga, it looks like you're trying to prove a point.
Yes, I am. First Amendment.
As you often do, sir.
Correct.
So, Mr. Stenga, do you have a point that's different from the rest?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay, sir, you will be the last person who will give testimony on this, and I think that's more than adequate, more than fair. Mr. Stenga.
Tim Stenga. I'm not a smoker, never have been. But not a single person has really come up here to tell anybody how to take care of, one, underage smoking, where kids start at 14 to 15 years old. I don't know why the city council hasn't come out and went up to Pier and made it to 21 to get cigarettes. That's an easy one. But I guess the thing is you're just holding everybody hostage. But when they say that it's going to save lives, what lives? We all know we're going to live and we're going to die. We just don't know when. But I also believe that people have a right to smoke. They have a right to do stuff. I would like to, at my house, put out no smoking signs down my sidewalk because I own my property. The city we're going on city-owned property. I would like to go on my own property so I don't have to pick up cigarette butts on my property when I don't smoke. I'd like to have no smoking on my property. But I can't have that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this going to deter people to smoke? No, because when I leave here tonight, I'm going to drive down the street. There's going to be a little kid in the back seat of a car, and mom and dad are going to have the cigarette going. Now, what is more against the law than having all the windows up and the child is sucking in that smoke from two people? I think this is a little bit too much.
Thank you, Mr. Stenga. Councilors, I'm now going to put it in your hands. I think that's more than appropriate. Again, folks, you've done a tremendous job tonight. Thank you for being productive, respectful, and prepared. Appreciate that. Councilors, any motions, any comments? Councilor Silber, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
First, I'd like to thank Directors Franken and Carney and all those involved who put so much time and energy into this, truly. And thanks to all those who have reached out and shared their views. It's been a lot of them, and there's plenty of strong opinions on both sides. Tobacco use is a tough subject to defend. I'm not here to do that or argue with any of the points that have been made against it. As I've shared over the past few weeks, I know firsthand what it's like to be around this 24/7 since I was old enough to crawl. I've seen its devastation. I've lost a parent. Quite frankly, I would just as soon never see another cigarette again in my lifetime. But after doing due diligence and studying all the data and arguments, I do support an outdoor ban in areas such as parks, libraries, where kids will frequently be in attendance. But the problem I have with a complete one-size-fits-all ban just keeps coming down to that question of how much government and regulation is too much.
I was leaving a show the other night, and I walked by a group of folks smoking in their designated area outside, and it hit me that in the last few years, we've legislated these folks out of buildings and businesses, and we've taxed their product to the point where it costs them roughly twice what it used to keep up their habit. And while I applaud and supported both of those steps as deterrents, now it seems government's coming around again to tell these folks and citizens to essentially get off our property as well in some cases. And I mean, all our citizens have rights, even those who have a legal habit that we're not particularly fond of. So for me, giving my personal history and sincere hatred of smoking, it's a tough call and a fine line, but I keep coming to that same conclusion, this total ban across the board. It's just, it seems to me government regulation a little bit on overload, and it's just too much in its current form. But thank you for letting me express that.
Councilor, thank you. Councilor, does anybody else want to engage before we vote? In that, anybody? Last call, folks.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Been a motion to approve.
Second.
Has been seconded.
Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment.
Councilor Erickson.
Our Assistant City Clerk does have this in front of her, but I will read it in for the record. Motion to amend by removing the words "for all city property" in the introduction and title. In Section 1, remove the definition of city property and insert the definition youth activities, activities in which the intended participants are those under 18 years of age. In Section 3, replace any city property with city-owned playgrounds and facilities where youth activities take place. In Section 4, replace city property with tobacco-free areas. Also in Section 4, remove the 5th and 6th sentences and insert any person in violation of this subchapter may be ejected from the city-owned playground or facilities where youth activities take place. Rex.
Second.
There's been a, Counselor, don't do that again. Thank you. There's been a motion to amend, and it has been seconded.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. If I may, Mayor and City Council, I do want to take this time to thank all of those that have reached out to this council. We have been receiving numerous emails from both proponents and opponents in regards to this very sensitive and emotional topic. It is not an easy vote. As stated earlier, this policy was put in place in 2013 by the Parks Board. Simply what this amendment does is it puts that policy into ordinance and gives us a framework to expand upon. Let me be clear. This is not an amendment to squash this forever. This is framework for us to make incremental changes based on those properties that we as a legislative body see fit. We can take on the conversation with the help of the experts. No one's here to dispute that tobacco is healthy. We know that. We know tobacco is not healthy. This is simply to build upon those. We've heard a lot of support from those that manage our city properties. We trust those experts to regulate firearms. Why not tobacco? Why have a top-down approach to have them do what we say? Why not let them have a designated area in the back if they have people coming in that want that? I understand no safe level of tobacco. There is no safe level of tobacco. I understand that. But there are rights of all here in place. Many of the people that have been in front of us have said they support this, but their properties are not smoke-free at this time. I encourage a collaborative effort of us to address those items. Is it 25 feet from an entrance? Is it the event center doesn't allow re-entry? That's a whole nother conversation for another time with the re-entry as far as being dangerous or not dangerous. That would eliminate 80% of the smoking at those facilities right now. If I am not a smoker, I do not like smoking. If I am in my car having a cigarette, yes, that impacts my health. That is my personal freedom, my personal choice. That it is not impacting anyone entering the building. I ask you to support this amendment, allow us to build on the framework, and continue this conversation as we move forward. Thank you.
Councilor Muck.
Thank you. I have to strongly disagree with Councilor Erickson. This is
this is an easy vote, a really easy vote. You know, and this amendment doesn't do anything new. This is just it's the exact same thing that we have already. This isn't anything new. Vote no on this amendment. Let's be about being that positive, progressive city that we are, and let's think about the 85% of the people in this town who don't smoke. Let's think about those rights, and let's talk about how we're going to support the rights of the people that truly are here sharing their concerns. You know, of the numbers of people who have been here this evening and the numbers of people that have contacted each of us individually, the vast majority support this. This is one of those times when we need to listen to the people that elected us and the people that are here that are spending time really doing the research, really being involved in a topic. For us to just spit in their faces because we've decided it's a personal liberty thing, 85% of our community wants this to happen. Let's get back on a positive track in this community. I'm disappointed in the negativity that's happening here tonight. I really know that this is a progressive, growing community. This is one of those places that people want to move to. They want to be part of a community where it's healthy and it's active and it's progressive. And if we are going to continue to be small-minded and negative about things, this isn't going to be the place that people are going to want to come to. I think we're at a point where we need to continue this progressive, positive atmosphere about this community, and voting yes on the original ordinance is positive, progressive action for this community. Vote no on the amendment. It doesn't do anything.
Councilor Nysert.
I wrote a statement today at about 3 o'clock. I've been spending a lot of time on this. First of all, I want to say sorry for not returning all of your calls. I'm looking at some of you. My phone has been ringing nonstop for 2 days, nonstop. And I've had, my voicemail box has been full multiple times. It's been overwhelming. When this was presented to me for the first time 10 weeks ago, I was totally opposed. My initial concern was liberty and government overreach. But I do my homework, I try to gather the facts, and I try to test my own assumptions. In addition, the health department, including Director Franken, Mary Michaels, and Director Kearney have done an incredible job of answering questions and providing me information whenever I asked for it. Their effort was simply astounding, it really was. It's a model for how a department should assist and, frankly, lobby us. They took someone who was completely opposed initially and have me where I am tonight, incredibly torn, having agonized for days over this decision. Now, I'll tell you, I have really agonized over this. My starting point was liberty, but as I studied the issue, it became clear it's not that simple. Liberty is one competing good, but there are others. Others include protecting others from harm, public health, setting an example for children, and sometimes even protecting people from themselves in certain limited cases. Liberty doesn't exist in a vacuum. It isn't unlimited. Even the most strident who think government should leave us alone believes there is a role for the state to restrict our liberty. The only question is why, under what circumstance, and how much. We can all agree that your choices and actions should not harm others. On that basis, we can find common ground on restrictions on tobacco products when it harms others. The issue, however, is finding agreement when harm occurs and when it is significant enough to warrant action. There's clear evidence that exposure to secondhand smoke indoors is an issue, I believe. What isn't clear is what amount of exposures outdoors really matters. For example, if someone is smoking 100 feet away from me outside, does it have any appreciable impact on my health? I don't know. But again, we can find agreement on restrictions based on the harm principle. That's low-hanging fruit and somewhere we can start. Restrictions on use near entrances, around children, and around organized activities could easily be justified on the harm principle. Besides harming others, we also sometimes pass laws based on legal paternalism, both soft and hard. And I'm kind of getting into philosophy, but soft paternalism is a reasoning that someone cannot make an informed decision on their own, so we'll make it for them. Laws prohibiting children from smoking is an example. These laws aren't terribly controversial either. We can find common ground on those things. But then we get to hard paternalism. That says that although you're an adult, you're educated about the dangers, you know better, you still do it nonetheless. We're going to tell you what's good for you. This is very controversial. Surprisingly, however, this reasoning to pass a law is not unheard of. Examples include seatbelt laws and helmet laws. We all know we should wear a seatbelt, but we still have laws against it. Tobacco laws in various forms are frankly various combinations of all three of these. Clearly, smoking near a child is harmful. We all agree on that. Clearly, a child should not be allowed to smoke. We all agree on that. An adult using chewing tobacco in the far corner of a city park, should that be banned? That's a tough one. And good people in this room have a major disagreement on that issue. It became clear to me that this issue is very complicated. There's a lot of competing goods and there's a number of justifications for tobacco laws. With a ban this comprehensive, all three are in play, and that makes this very controversial, very polarizing, and very difficult. I had a lot of other objections, and my research has largely alleviated those. I'm convinced we're not criminalizing anyone. That's been covered. The thing about this amendment, it does seem a little weird to have an ordinance without a penalty. It feels like we're kind of legislating a suggestion, which is a little bizarre. In the real world, people do comply with tobacco bans. We have proof from the parks policy. The school district has a ban. People comply. And nationwide, it's not a problem. So enforcement and police resources, I don't think that would really be an issue. Another important point, this would ban tobacco on city property, not your private property. That's an important distinction. We aren't telling people what they can do on their own property. That's important to note. But city property, by definition, is taxpayer property. It belongs to the people. That's important to note. So for me, what the people think on this issue has a lot of pull. It's clear to me there's overwhelming support for indoor bans. There's probably quite a bit of support for targeted bans. My sense is that the support for a total ban really starts to drop significantly. It's hard to know. In regards to modeling to children, it's an important discussion. It's a laudable goal. I don't want tobacco use to be something that is acceptable to my daughter. However, modeling to my daughter also involves teaching her about competing values, about the values of liberty and the right of others to chart their own path. It's also about creating teachable moments rather than hiding her from the world. In regards to losing business, I totally reject that argument. I think we know from proof that people are not going to lose business. The smoking ban from years ago proves that point. I've given up on the argument against that we should also be dealing with alcohol. It's not an either or. We can deal with both. As far as littering, we do have littering laws. It was interesting to discover that there's various bans and various degrees in many areas of the country. So this actually isn't new. Now, a complete ban, that's not that common, but tobacco regulations in various forms are very common. Doesn't mean it's a correct path, but to be fair, this is not new ground or a new debate. A lot of citizens have expressed to me that there must be a reasonable way to accommodate those who use tobacco. Segregated smoking areas, for example, many have expressed they would like segregated smoking areas outside of the event center, which we have, and that it's a reasonable compromise that protects their health as a non-smoker, but it honors the rights of smoker and gives them some level of compassion and understanding. These people don't like smoking, they don't smoke, but they also understand that people have the right to make their own choices, particularly when their harm to others is negligible or non-existent. So we have to think very seriously whether we're willing to strip freedoms away from others in the name of making them healthier. We have to think about the tyranny of the majority, and we have to be very careful in this regard. So we're talking about city property, but what is city property? It's the people's property, and it's there to benefit all people, not just the majority. Tobacco users are citizens, taxpayers, and people too. If the majority of people supporting banning a certain group of people from city property, does that therefore make it right? Of course not. It's there for the enjoyment of everyone, including the minority. Just because a group is a minority, we cannot justify draconian actions to limit their freedom. My job is to express the will of the majority, but at the same time to protect the minority as well. In the end, I have tried to rationalize this 6 ways from Sunday, trying to convince myself this could work. But my gut, my conscience keeps gnawing at me, telling me something is wrong. I've realized after a lot of soul searching that it's because this is just too far and I can't rationalize away the overreach. I realize what's been bugging me is a gnawing sense that I'm this close to violating a core principle I was taught and our country was founded on. What I can't get past is the following question. Let's say I vote for this, knowing it wasn't just protecting people from harming others, but also telling educated adults who are fully aware of the consequences of their actions that I am overruling their decision and telling them what's best for them. In the name of their health, I'm going to dictate to them and overrule their decision. If I vote for this, I know that's what I'm doing. And again, we're not talking about selling tobacco. We're talking about prohibiting its use completely. In 1 year, if the health department brings a proposal forward to prohibit the consumption of soda on all city property, not just the sale, the consumption, with the argument that obesity is a public health crisis and an epidemic, and we need to model for our children and we need to protect people from themselves, How can I justify voting no on that when I voted for this on the same grounds? The answer I keep coming back to is I can't. I realize I'm going down a very dangerous road with the best of intentions, making people healthier, but still we're on a very dangerous ground. I know the argument that tobacco has no safe level of use and other things can be used in moderation. I get that. That is some logic to me, but the fact is on the same public health logic, soda bans and controls are being implemented, so I can't fool myself into thinking that distinction is a sufficient firewall to more controls. I know many would object to the tobacco versus soda comparisons, but there's a lot of parallels, frankly. Very little benefit from it. Soda bans are already taking hold in our country, so it's not a theoretical argument. I've tried to rationalize how I could stop here, but I just don't see it. As far as saving countless lives, we could argue that with many things. An eye-opener for me is if you can get children to the ages of 18 to 20 without using tobacco, they probably never will. So we really need to focus on addressing that issue, but we also do have to think about the rights of everybody. We also need to be careful about making smokers and tobacco users into pariahs. These are good people with an addiction. There's room for some compassion here. Let's remember we do have some police and firefighters who use tobacco products. Does that reflect on their decency or their value? I don't think so. I acknowledge that those who support this have good hearts and the best of intentions. I honor that. We just have a philosophical disagreement here. So in the end, adults armed with all the information still choose to do things that aren't in their best interest, even dumb things. But one of our core principles from our founding is that you have the freedom to make your own mistakes, to make your own choices, and choose your own path, even if it isn't what I think is the best path. So long as you don't inflict harm on me, abridging your right to self-determination cannot be taken lightly. So in the end, I come back to where I started. I cannot justify dictating to citizens what's best for them and overruling their legal decision when they, in many cases, are not harming anyone else, and we have other ways we can address this. And again, with a proposal like this, we are talking about telling people what is good for them. An adult using chewing tobacco in a car at the event center, there's no plausible argument that they're harming me. So I just can't do it. I've tried to figure out how I could make it work, but and I'm not a huge fan of the amendment either, but we can build on this. I promise you, come back to me, talk about proximities to doors, let's talk about the parks, let's talk about the libraries. There's a lot of things we can build upon, we can add on to this. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Councilor Staley?
Something that's coming up, one word that came to me throughout this whole thing is the word enforcement. The $95 fine is problematic for me. And I know that we were talking, Director Frank, and you said if they don't abide, then a police officer will be called. There's going to be a warning first and a nice maybe approach to a person, and then you're going to come in with the police officer. I think our police department is taxed right now with so many important things. I'm not going to be supporting anything that's going to put that on their backs to respond to a call for a tobacco user on a park. But I also I have to say that another word that came up tonight was the word compromise. The public has to realize that this energy didn't come out of the City Council, it came out of the Health Department. And I think moving forward, this amendment is a fabulous first step. But I think a lot of these council members are willing to talk with the public to say, what can we come up with that's going to be reasonable? So that we still respect the rights of a smoker, but we keep a parameter of smoke-free areas that will respect people with health problems as well. But smokers, they're doing a legal activity. I use the word criminalize loosely, but in a sense, we're kind of demonizing smokers. It's almost like we want to run them out of town. And I think, I feel for a guy who's on the bike trail and wants to have a cigarette. I mean, he's going to have to leave that area and go off into some neighborhood and smoke. I mean, I don't want to put an unreasonable burden on people, but I want our people to be healthy as well. So however this plays out tonight, I think this isn't the end of the conversation, and I think we can come together and discuss something that's going to be a win-win for everyone in our community.
Council Vice Chair Kelly.
Thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that showed up tonight to testify on this particular item, regardless of what side of the issue you're on. I think it's very important that we hear from all of you. And again, I sincerely thank you for being here. 85% of our city residents are non-smokers. And the email that I have received on this particular issue certainly reflects that percentage. Actually, it far exceeds the 85%. I've had well over 100 emails supporting this, and I thank the individuals that sent me those emails. And I've had 6 or maybe 7 emails opposing. 4 of those came just today. The evidence, there was comments about heartstrings and emotion. And boy, when you watch Hannah and Dylan up there doing a great job, the future of the city of Sioux Falls, I mean, it does bring up emotion and it does tug on the heartstrings. However, this is evidence-based. This is based on science. And study supports a policy prohibiting tobacco use in terms of how it positively affects that tobacco use. Many other cities have done what we're attempting to do today, and they have had great success, and they have realized a reduction in tobacco use within their citizenry. Criminalizing smokers, it doesn't do that any more than receiving a parking ticket does, a speeding ticket, or being fined for having a minor fender bender. So I do not see that. I am for protecting the rights of non-smokers from the effects of secondhand and third-hand smoke. And Dr. Mark Huntington sent us an email earlier that I would like to read a quote from. In a free society, competent individuals arguably have the right to do themselves harm, at least to a point. A free society also mandates that individuals be protected from being harmed by others. The proposed amendments address just this issue. The rights of individual members of the city to use public city-owned facilities, including buildings and parks, without being assaulted by the hazardous byproducts of others' tobacco use. When discussing public health policy, there is often a tension of perceived conflicts between the liberties of different parties. In this case, the potential limitation imposed on the rights of the smoker is less onerous than the potential hazard to which the non-smoking public is otherwise exposed. I would like to once again just review the benefits of this policy. It creates healthy environments by eliminating secondhand smoke. It supports individuals trying to quit or who have already quit tobacco. It reduces your youth exposure, protecting their health and discouraging them from starting tobacco use. It encourages a culture of health and well-being, and it protects parks and natural areas from littering of tobacco-related waste. I truly believe this vote has the potential to make the biggest and most positive impact on the lives of our citizens when compared to the votes I have cast in the 2.5 years while serving on this council. It will benefit smokers and non-smokers alike. It has the potential to save lives and to prolong the lives of many others. And I will remind my colleagues that this debate took place at the state level a few years ago when we had the debate about banning smoking inside public places. And a lot of the same issues were raised about enforcement issues, criminalizing individuals for smoking indoors, and much of those were never realized. So once again, I would encourage passing of this, and I'd like to conclude by reading something that Mary Michaels had sent to me, and I think it addresses this very well. This may seem difficult, but some of the greatest achievements come from stepping outside our comfort zone and doing the right thing. Usually, a fear of taking risks comes from these three things. 1, overestimating what we think the negative consequences will be. 2, underestimating our ability to address any challenges that do arise. And 3, discounting the costs of not acting. I encourage my fellow colleagues to act and vote in favor of this ordinance. Thank you.
Councilors, if there's no discussion, any further discussion, let's vote on the amendment. And I'm not trying to, I personally didn't understand it. I apologize. Before you vote, Council, do you have an understanding of what Councilor Erickson is trying to propose? Very good. I'm seeing a nodding of heads of all the councilors, and thank you. We will vote on the amendment, and do we need to read it?
Yes,
very good. A roll call vote, please, on the amendment as proposed by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Council Chair Rolfing.
Councilmember Neitzer.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
No.
Kylie.
No.
The amendment is passed 6-2. Is there any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Main motion as amended. Councilmember Neitzer.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
No.
Kylie.
No.
That is passed 6-2. Item 33.
Item 33 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 3009 South Marion Road from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District, petition number 5807-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
Jason Bieber again, representing Planning and Building Services. This is an application by Tom Monin. It is located north of West 41st Street and west of South Marion Road. It's roughly 1.8 acres in size. The purpose of this request is to rezone the 1.8 acres to the RD1 zoning district and combine it with the existing 2.96 acres of RD1 zone property to the west and construct a twin home development with roughly 27 lots.
Folks, this is a second reading. Is there anybody in the audience who want to speak to this item? Very good, councilors.
Move to approve, Neitzer.
Second Erpenbach.
And a motion to approve this item by Councilor Neitzer, second by Councilor Erpenbach. Is there any discussion, folks? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Neitzer.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley. Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 34.
Item 34 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 909 North Kiwanis Avenue from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District to the O Office District, petition number 5818-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
The applicant and owner here is Ron Steambolt. It is located at that southwest corner of West Madison and North Kiwanis Avenue. It's roughly 0.1 acres in size. The applicant is proposing to construct an accessory parking lot for the existing Ron's Garage motor vehicle repair business to the north. They will be required to do a level B buffer yard on that south and west side, which should alleviate some of the incompatibilities with this proposed use to the existing single-family uses to the south and west.
Folks, another second reading. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Council?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Erpenbach.
Got a motion to approve this item, second as well. Councilor Neitzer.
Jason, so if this is approved, then he just has to get a conditional use permit and do the required buffer yard, and then he can do his extra parking. Is that correct?
Yeah, he would need a conditional use for accessory off-site parking within a certain distance. And then as long as he does his buffer yard requirements, he would be able to construct his parking lot. So.
Okay, I know this has been taking a little while, so thank you for all the help that I know that you've given the applicant in getting this to work.
Very good. Councilor Starr?
Yep. As part of the disclosure, as part of this process, I want to make sure that everyone and my fellow councilors know that I did talk with the applicant as part of this and actually was at his site. And I'm very impressed by the applicant's work to clean up that area. It's a difficult corner to back out onto that street and to be able to do some things that we wouldn't normally allow. But as we backfill and as the time changes and things happen, I'm really impressed by what he's willing to do to clean up that area and make it an attractive, safe location as much as possible. So,
Councilor, thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson. Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 35.
Item 35 is a first reading. Set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, December 20th, 2016 at 7:00 p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 124, Transportation Services, Subchapter General Provisions, Section 124.12, Transit and Paratransit Fares to provide youth an opportunity to ride fixed route bus service at no charge each summer.
Good evening, Jim David, Operations Manager for the City Council. For first reading tonight is an ordinance making the Freedom Pass pilot program permanently free of charge to youth each summer. This program originated in 2010 under the name the Dog Days of Summer and offered young people an opportunity to ride fixed route throughout the summer for opportunities to recreate and to also go to a job. This program began with $25 until in 2015 the City Council amended the $25, creating a free program. Earlier this year, the City Council again approved an ordinance to continue the pilot program for the summer of 2016. Once approved by Council, City Planning, Sioux Area Metro simplified the program by only requiring a student ID in lieu of the dog tags that had been in use since 2010. When the pilot program began in 2015, ridership increased by 200 during that summer. With a simplified program and earlier awareness with youth and parents, 2,000 youth rode the summer, 2,000 additional youth rode fixed route during last summer. If we look at youth ridership by months, we see a significant increase in all 3 months, 29% in June, 27% in July, and 12% in August. This is the second time that this issue or this item has been brought forward to council, and if you concur, there'll be a second reading next week. I'd be happy answering your questions. Also, Sam Troublecock with Planning would be happy to answer your questions also.
Councilor Neitzer.
I have 2 questions. The first might be for Jim, the second for Sam, possibly. Okay. So the first question is taking us back, those of us who haven't been on the council, even though maybe we're in the audience. So could you just tell us generally, or somebody just let us know what the goal was of this program?
Well, this program, the idea actually came forward during public input at a council meeting, and it discussed. There was a citizen who brought this idea forward, and I think it was an opportunity for youth in the city to ride, to maybe go to a pool. Maybe they're in an area of town that is not served by a pool. Taking a fixed route bus allows them to go to any pool around on the fixed route line. Also, if they have a job, it provides them an opportunity to go to a job if they don't have a car. So I think there was kind of both recreational but also economic and job opportunities that played into this.
Okay. And number 2, is there any data that we've collected to show that the summer ridership that this program has translated to new customers during the school year?
That's a good question.
Sam Trebelcock, City Planning. There isn't any empirical data. I think that would be difficult to really show. Instead, what we're looking at is it's the opportunity. It's something where we are teaching the kids to be able to give them an opportunity to ride the bus, learn how to ride the bus. One of the things that we look at is the importance of travel training, and we're looking at opportunities to do that. I think we certainly do that with this program. They learn how to ride the bus during the summer, and hopefully they can, look at riding it during the school year and as they become adults too. So no, there is not any empirical data though.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mock.
I just wanted to add to that, Councilor Neitzer. One of the things that, as we were piloting this project, one of the things that really stuck with me was that idea that the summer feeding programs that the school district puts on are also on bus routes. And this provides a free opportunity for some of those kids who are struggling to find food during the day. So that was a big one for me.
Councilors, would anybody want to set a date of hearing, second reading for Tuesday, December 20th for this particular item?
Second.
Councilor Erickson makes that motion, seconded by Council Vice Chair Kiley. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Item 36 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, January 10th, 2017 at 7 p.m. First reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 95, Parks and Recreation, Subchapter Park and Recreation Board, to require audio or video recording of Parks and Recreation Board meetings and requiring 48 hours prior to official action.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This ordinance was brought forward by Councilor Rolfing and myself. We have been talking about this for well over a year since I've been on the council, and recently brought it back up as we discussed changes to information that we receive. This ordinance does not reflect any negativity towards the park board, but instead respect and recognition of the importance of this board, its members, and their deliberations and recommendations to the City Council. The Parks Board also has a very important partnership with this council, and it's clearly evident within existing ordinance. What this ordinance, based on what is currently in ordinance, the board shall, meaning the park board, shall initiate ordinances, policies, and rules governing the city's parks, pools, other facilities, including public golf courses. And also in subsection D, the board shall initiate and review parks and recreation programs, make recommendations to the mayor, city council for their adoption. And finally, in subsection E, the board is empowered to review and make recommendations to the mayor, city council on any matters affecting the establishment, improvement, maintenance, and regulation of the parks, including any proposed revisions to Chapter 95, except for this section. And you will remember when we talked about Van Epps Park, this is where this section came in play. The issues shall be submitted to the board for recommendation prior to official council action unless the city council deems it necessary for immediate preservation of the public peace, health, or safety, and it continues to go on. The other key component of this ordinance is having it on record for at least 48 hours in advance. Simply what this does is allows a couple of days to walk through the process of us as counselors to do our due diligence in knowing what the dialogue and the conversation was at the Parks Board meetings. It's helpful to me as an elected official when considering a comprehensive plan, capital improvement programs, or any other policy that impacts our park system. The 48-hour advance notice simply creates approximately a week, but does not dictate when the Park Board shall meet, where they should meet, and in this particular ordinance, it just says a audio or video recording of the Parks Board and Recreation. I'd ask for your approval. I know Councilor Rolfing had some conversations in regards to this to move the date of hearing to January 17th to allow time for the Park Board to consider this at their meeting as well. I'd ask for your favorable vote on this matter. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Council Chair.
Yes, I would like to reiterate a little bit what Councilor Erickson said and say that I have been in contact with Park Board Chairman Patty Abdullah. We visited about this, and she has indicated that moving the date out to the 17th of January gives sufficient time for us to attend and for everyone to do the research that's needed to make sure that we can implement this. So in the correct way. So I would make a motion to set the date of hearing for Tuesday, January 17th, 2017.
Second.
Been a motion by Council Chair Rolfing to set a date of hearing for Tuesday, January 17th for this item, sent by Councilor Starr. Any discussions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 37.
Item 37 is a resolution approving the 2016 Sioux Falls Transit Development Plan.
Good evening, Sam Trebelkak, City of Sioux Falls Planning. I talked to councilors about this item at an informational about a month ago now. So I'm going to do a little bit of review for you, and hopefully you've gotten a chance to take a look at the plan. And again, these are strategies for the future. Over the next 5 years, what we're looking at, trying to improve transit in Sioux Falls. How do we try to make this more sustainable? How do we make improvements down into the future? How do we expand? Public involvement was important to the plan as we looked at this through the summer and fall. We had stakeholder meetings. We had paratransit stakeholder meetings. We had MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization meetings. Public open houses were held, 2 different ones. Our PTAB provided a recommendation and unanimously recommended approval. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we had an informational with you city councilors. The goals from the Transit Task Force report that was completed 3 years ago were the basis of this plan. Again, they stayed the same. It's the strategies that we looked at as part of this plan that were looked at in greater detail. Again, the goals from the Transit Task Force report and were goals for this plan include reduce the cost of paratransit, increase fixed route services, to look at implementing community-based transportation within Sioux Falls, developing transit travel training programs, and also to provide long-term financial status report to City Council and PTAB. And we try to do that every year through the budget process and through this process. Now, what are some of the strategies in this plan? Within Goal 1, some of the things that we're looking at trying to do, and some of these things we're actually in the process of trying to move forward now, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about even in next week's informational meeting, include continuing with the pilot project that we just are finishing up with Community Coordinated Transportation Services. We want to continue that project. It's been successful. We want to continue those 350 rides a week on CCTS and working with the agencies in a way to equitably share the transportation costs of those program day trips. We're working with them right now in ways that we can continue to move forward with that idea within funding agreements. And those are things that we'll, again, be talking to you more about next week in detail. We also want to look at, over this next year, working with the South Dakota Department of Human Services and the legislature and other state agencies in finding ways that human service specialized transportation can be done in other community, done in a more sustainable way. We found as we've reached out to other communities that it's not just Sioux Falls that has this issue. We need to restart up the process with coordinated human service transportation at the state level. And we think that's going to be important to implementation of our plan. As we move forward, we want to continue to move some of these day program trips, these human service trips, to this coordinated process. The paratransit model is not the most efficient way to do things, and we need to find a different way, and we think we found that in part. So we want to continue to start over the next 2-3 years, look at ways that we can move some of these day program trips to this community coordinated transportation service. And then we think we want to start looking at bringing agency fares into that conversation at some point. That's going to be important to do also, to encourage that. Goal 2 is to increase the fixed route services by 1.6 million. We've done that as in our comprehensive route analysis that was included in this plan to improve services to prospective customers by 2025. We want to also look at adjusting our fares every couple of years. We also want to look at community partnerships with businesses and other organizations, such as we did with Augustana College. We just signed a new agreement, Sioux Area Metro did with Augustana for doing this for the next year also. It's worked well. Now within that comprehensive route analysis, and again, I went through that plan, that route analysis with you in fairly good detail during that informational meeting. I'm not going to do that here, but I think what's important is that you understand what we're trying to do is expand our services a little bit to the west and to the southeast, and also to look at ways that we can increase frequency on some of our existing routes and look at really developing corridor style routes rather than loop routes that we have in our services right now. And we can do that with the plan that we have in place, we believe. And goal 3 is to develop a comprehensive nonprofit transportation system. We are in the process of doing that now with CCTS. And we believe that that coordinated system would provide a means to best harness some community-based giving also. That we can also find ways that not just can we expect the government to do all the transportation in the community, we're going to have to look at other avenues. And we think this is something to look at is through this process. And that encourages to look at a process that we started a couple of years called Drive to Help, which is trying to bring volunteers to the table to drive for people, volunteer driver pool for Project Car and Workers on Wheels. We think that's going to be important to success. Goal 4 is to develop a travel training program, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. We really think marketing is going to be people's understanding how to use the system, and that it really isn't as daunting as they think. It is something that everybody can do, and especially if we make the improvements that we're talking about here. So that could also include a program called the Buddy System that could also a little more intensive travel training. So we really think that's got some possibilities. Capital plan is included in this. In the transit development plan also, that includes the downtown bus stop that's going to be renovated next year. And also we really have to start looking at things like our bus garage and offices. That needs to be expanded and also renovated. So we included that in the plan in ways that we can start looking at that. Most importantly is bringing this plan forward really does show the needs for what we're going to be looking at for our transit fund. If we don't do something, we know that you'll be on that blue line. And that blue line does go below zero and into a deficit situation fairly quickly. So we think it's really important that we start looking at providing some savings to our paratransit system so that we can expand our fixed route services as our community grows 3,000 to 4,000 people a year. We really haven't had that expansion to our system. In fact, if we aren't able to do something even next year with paratransit savings, that means those 350 rides a week. If we can't keep those on CCTS, we're going to have to look at doing something on the other side of the ledger with fixed route services and looking at making some cuts. So it is important. With that, I would take any questions you have.
Sam, thank you. Appreciate it. Folks, is there anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Councilors? Councilor Urbanbach?
I just want to just not really question Sam, but this is one of those things we've been riding for the whole time that I've been on council, and I just appreciate it's starting to look like we can make a difference in the way this transit system works. And I just appreciate your sticking with it as much as anything. You've persevered through all of our kind of crazy up and down, and I think we're headed in the right direction. So I would move to approve, Mr. Mayor. Or yes, move to approve.
Councilor Urbach, thank you.
Second.
Council Chair Rolfing is seconded. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 38.
Item 38 is a resolution of intent to enter into a lease of municipal real property, Downtown Center Urban Renewal Subdivision.
Good evening, Dustin Powers with the city's Community Development Office. Tonight's resolution acts as a notice that the city is contemplating a lease of a portion of the subject property. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of 8th Street and Phillips Avenue and is referred to as Pioneer Plaza in downtown Sioux Falls. The city was approached by adjacent landowner that shared interest in utilizing a portion of the property. Tonight's resolution is acting as notice that the city is considering leasing that property. So an affirmative action tonight allows city staff to move forward to continue negotiations with that adjacent property owner, and any negotiations or those conversations that would result into a lease, that lease would then come back to city council via an ordinance approval process. So this resolution tonight is acting as a notice that the city is contemplating a lease of a city-owned property, but any future action that would result of that would come back to city council. If there's any questions, I could answer those.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this particular item? Councilor Bach?
Thank you, Dustin. I know that we have several leases like this, and particularly along the bike trail areas, though the couple that come to my mind immediately are the First Bank and Trust building over on 57th Street, sorry. There's a little piece of bike trail property, park property that is technically leased to them. My question is, if we're going to lease park property that is as prominent as this one is, and it has a name, Pioneer Plaza, will that lessee, the person that's leasing it, would they be allowed to make changes to it? And if they were, what would they be? Because there's a fountain there and other things, correct?
Yeah, one of the things that we I can maybe give some interpretation by Councilor or Attorney Fifley as well. But when we researched this property, the deed restrictions on this property didn't require that it be used for park purpose. So this is we're treating this as a city-owned property. It is maintained by the park department, but it's one of those assets that they don't program or market as essentially a park property. So it's a little bit different in that nature as it would pertain to the potential use that they would utilize it for. In this case, the adjacent property owner is looking at utilizing it for some additional patio space that would flow with the connection to the River Greenway. So I'm not familiar with the other lease that you talked about, but maybe someone else is.
Well, Beetle Greenway is another one. There's several places where we have some sort of agreement. If it's not a lease, it's an easement. And I know First Bank and Trust has planted trees into that property, that's city property. So they've made changes to it. Not that it's not a negative thing. I guess my question is, how much space are we talking about? Because I don't have a map in front of me. And then what happens to the fountain? What would we allow them to do?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. We're talking about the property owner to the south of this property. They're looking at utilizing approximately 15 feet from their property line. So there would be sufficient of the majority of the plaza would still remain as the plaza is today. It wouldn't affect the fountain at the corner or anything like that. They would look at utilizing that space. They are interested in a long-term lease, so this would be a longer-term lease. I know some of the other leases that relate to some of those other agreements are just a one-year agreement that come back yearly. And a lot of those negotiations are still to happen yet. This resolution is really to allow us to enter into those negotiations and bring something back. But they are looking at 15 feet, roughly 15 feet. That still hasn't been quite defined yet from the north of their property line into the plaza area. If that answers your question.
Another question, Mr. Mayor, if I might. Just then it would encompass all the way to the sidewalk essentially, so that there wouldn't be a 6-inch strip of land that we're going to be responsible for maintaining or those.
Correct. It would be 15 feet linear to their entire property line and linear to the entire south property line of the plaza. So there wouldn't be any gaps in between the properties where we'd be figuring out maintenance or anything like that. It'd be a clean break of the leased area versus what's still remaining in the public plaza area.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate your answering my questions. I would move approval, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Counselor.
Second, Erickson.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that. If there's no more discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 39.
Item 39 is a resolution of intent to enter into a lease of municipal real property, various properties.
David?
Dustin did a good job kind of explaining what a resolution of intent is to enter into a lease on item 38. For this item 39, it lists various properties near the city that the city would intend to enter into leases of that municipal property regarding primarily farming purposes to allow folks to farm that property that we own and we're holding for future use.
In the audience who want to speak to this item? Counselors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second,
Second.
Selberg.
Council Chair has made that motion, seconded by Counselor Erickson. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Counselors, thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 40, please.
Item 40 is a resolution of intent to extend the boundaries of the City of Sioux Falls.
Thank you, Council, Mayor. Albert Schmidt, City of Sioux Falls Planning Office, here to present this initiated annexation. This is, I'll start off with this. It's the first of a two-step process for a city initiated annexation as laid out by state law. So we'll kind of start off with kind of explaining the process a little bit and going through. I apologize. I had the PDF in there. This is going to be a little bumpy. I apologize. So first off, when you look at city initiated annexations, we look at trying to make sure that we state the benefit of annexation. And we believe that, again, there's really 5 points that we talk to. Making sure everybody's treated equally for tax burden, orderly growth and development, the political affiliation and community, where people actually attend, where they feel part of, the economical services, using them efficiently, and then contiguous authority, making sure there's not a breakup of power so that there's a continuous law that people can understand and follow easier. Historically, for legal standing of state initiated annexations, 1981 is where the South Dakota Supreme Court ruled in that indicated that just because a property owner doesn't want to become annexed in because either the taxes or those kind of things, if they receive that benefit, if they're part of that community, de facto, there's still an ability for that community to get them associated with them directly through an annexation. Now, when you look at our annexation program, we've identified over 60 properties in the area, and this is one of the areas on the map identified as 11, but that's not a ranking, that's just to help you identify them on a map in those areas. So we have worked on other ones already. Some of them have been brought in since we've started, and so this map kind of indicates to you a little bit the process that has gone through, the progress we've made in trying to close up some of these islands. And again, I apologize. I had some PowerPoint that I was trying to keep updated with some of our email communications as questions arise to try to answer them. So when you look at the city as a whole, the last city initiated annexation that we did was in 2003. So that was a while ago. And when you look at the annexation around the city of Sioux Falls of the areas where they were annexed in 2003 or earlier compared to 2004 and today, of the islands that we have identified in this area that are 100% surrounded, in 2003, we had 2 islands that we identified today completely surrounded, whereas now today we have 35. So our course of annexation, our past, have put us at a point now where we have 35 of these completely surrounded areas inside the city limits of Sioux Falls. I'm not even talking about the ones that are 3/4 surrounded, the ones that are half surrounded. This is 100% fully surrounded by city limits of Sioux Falls. So that just kind of gives you a history of, since we haven't been doing city annexation since 2003, what has happened inside the boundaries of the city. So then when you look more specifically at the Metzgert area, it is an active area for us. I'm going to explain a few things without a map here, but when you look around it and you use a 1,000-foot buffer on the property, currently we have quite a few active permits in the area. Actually, since 2014, we have over $11.2 million in permit activity in this area. Most of that's an apartment complex going up to the west, but there are also single-family houses, twin homes going up in the area. When you look at just permitting process, either water stubs, grading, new structures going up, over 80% of the properties within 1,000 feet of this property have obtained a permit through the city. So when we talk about what is the state requirement for city annexations that we initiate for that process, South Dakota Codified Law 9.4 indicates that, and there's a study required, and that identifies these specific areas which we talk about. So for instance, track 2 of Litchbirch addition is the description of the boundary of the area. It's one tract, it's one lot, easily described in our instance here. When you talk about the resources exist, we have capacity for the system. Is not in use, is not an issue in the area. We have plenty of capacity to service the area already. Additionally, going through water, sewer, street are already in place in the area. Additionally, estimated approximate that the connection is going to be about $1,600 to connect to sewer. The service line is estimated to be between $20 and $150 per foot. Probably wouldn't be the latter because that range really represents how much elevation change you have to go, what depth you have to get your thing to, how much landscape you have to go through if you have to cut out a driveway. So there's a lot of variables. That's why the range of estimate $20 to $150 a lineal foot for a sanitary sewer line to be put in privately is so varying. But in addition then, estimates on the tax difference are around $900 a year plus about $400 a year for assessments. That's street and stormwater. The area is completely surrounded by City of Sioux Falls limits, 100%. And then the long-range plan shows the need for additional lands of residential development. As you look at our long-range plans through the comprehensive plan, the SHAPE 2040 plan, we anticipate growth getting into over 200,000 people, 233,000 by 2033 or 2035. So the growth for the City of Sioux Falls is definitely pressed to continue on in our estimates. Long-range plan shows this need again. So that's the reasonable present and future need for annexing contiguous territory. And then the last one, experiencing growth, again, areas under current growth, as I explained with the $11.2 million in permits in the last 3 years, 80% have obtained some sort of permit, being water, those items. When you look at the history on this one, from a timeline perspective, there's 2 things that happened here. We did the street improvement there on Sycamore Avenue, and so annexation was brought up in conversations in those meetings as well. So as early as 2014, the property was made aware that annexation was a possibility that we would want to talk to them about annexing. The city-initiated program didn't start initiating discussions until actually January 6th, I'm sorry, is the letter I sent out of 2016. So that's the initial letter we sent out. We started the study then March 7th. I had a draft of it done in September. Then we presented the findings to the owner after communicating and getting in touch in person on August 17th. I provided a deadline at that point for Labor Day, September 5th, to either have a petition in or we would then look at pursuing state-initiated annexation. Then we did an internal review in the November 10th period, and then we kind of finalized our study just to make sure we had everything in the right spot, November 25th. Between those dates, we try to, you use that. There's also a benefit to the property owner, so we didn't really want to try to bring them in immediately. You don't want to, we're not trying to hurt people with this process. And so if you look at why timing is important of annexations, there's an October, November kind of deadline there when you talk assessments, what levies are going to be used, if it's in-city rates versus township rates. And so delaying it to this point also helps out just to make it very clear and definitive that we're not trying to get in under the radar and make sure that it's city rates for 1 year sooner than it could be. So then in addition, we sent certified notice of hearing as required by state law. We sent a copy to the county and to the property owner on November 25th. We, in addition to that, above and beyond state law, like we normally do for a lot of our annexations, we also published in the Argus Leader that same day. So there was public hearing in that form as well. And as you may know, with these certified notices, the state law set requires that we send them out, not that we have a signed statement back from us. There's various reasons why we may or may not get that back, but it's that intense, and it's our intent to treat every annexation similarly and fair and make sure there's a consistent method to getting information out to people and making sure these notices are brought out to people. And so that's why we chose to just stick with state law and our normal procedure of publishing in the paper. Then when you look at the next step, again, this is tonight, the resolution of intent to annex. This is step one of a two-step process. So if approved for tonight, then after this becomes effective, we'll bring forward the actual resolution for annexation, of which, again, there'd be an opportunity to be publicly heard tonight, and then also at that one, which we anticipate at this time to be January 17th, 2017, which would, if approved, bring an effective date of February 10th. So that's kind of our timeline, an executive summary of the whole study. The area is currently being developed. When you look at street improvements, they were completed in front of this property where it has access this year in 2016. And the site currently is on city water using out-of-city rates, so they're paying a little higher rates. So after annexation, those rates will drop. Sewer infrastructure already abuts the property. It's within 200 feet on the rear side of the property, on the northwest or northeast side, sorry. The address will change after annexation to conform to our 911 policy to make sure that it conforms to every other address in City of Sioux Falls. And there will be a financial impact. I'll kind of go over there to the next slide here. Staff-wise, we recommend for annexation based on everything that when you consider it around and what's going on around it and where it's at. So there's a couple changes since I've prepared this information for you. But the estimated tax base is still the same. We estimate that the estimated tax will probably be about $4,600, increase of approximately $922. This annual assessments for stormwater and street, we still estimate those to be, again, around $400 total between the two of them. Sidewalk assessment, we no longer believe that that one's going to come through after talking with Public Works, so that should be a 0. And I'll have at the end of it, I'll make another additional comment to fill you in on that one too. Sanitary sewer cost recovery is one that this is a pre-existing house, so that rate is set by the ordinance at $16.41. Only time you pay that is at the time you connect. So the other one, the sewer line installation, again, that's that $20 to $150. That's why that range is so huge. I highly doubt it'd be at the higher end of that based on the discussions with engineering, but that's the range we give for estimates. And again, both these would be due at the time that you actually connect that. And so typically when we do annexations and there's sewer line within 200 feet, we're going to give notice, and that's going to give the property owner 5 years to get that connection put in place. That way they can plan for it and kind of get it installed accordingly. If they want to connect sooner than that, they definitely have the opportunity to. We don't limit them to at the 5-year point. So if you look at the property today, this is a view on the sidewalk looking north of Sycamore with the Metzger property right there. You can see the abutting construction. When you look from the backyard, this is along where the sewer line is. The sewer kind of ends right here. This is a view of the back of the property with, again, the fourplexes that are under construction today abutting the property on the north side. When you look at the maps from the study, this kind of just shows the general location. This shows our current land use, and you can kind of see some of the yellow popping up in there for single families and those kind of things. Future land use, you can kind of see how South Dakota Veterans Parkway and the community employment centers kind of play a role, kind of see where they're at comparatively. This basically just shows you that we anticipate future residential development in the area. Sewer map, again, shows that sewer connection right up to the property within 200 feet. Water main shows the water main down Sycamore Avenue connecting to the property. Major street plan shows the major street roads going through. These are all requirements of the study. When you look at park map, that also shows then a future park going in right south of the new Harrisburg Elementary School that went in. That's to the southwest of the property. Again, the property is right here in the middle, and the park site here. And when you look at the school location, the school districts, you can see it's clearly in the Harrisburg School District, and then putting an arrow to the new school that's out there. So when you're out on site today, you can physically see that school from the house. So as a summary, when you look at what we're doing with this one, there's 3 areas, 4.1, 4.2, 4.4. The study is required for annexation without petition. We did that. We completed that November 25th. Then with the resolution of intent to annex, that's where we've shown tonight that we've met all those requirements through a process. We believe that this should be approved or recommended. We recommend for approval. And then the next step then is resolution for annexation. Now, the note that I want to throw in here, we're asking for approval today is the intent to annex, but I'd also like to recommend that we make an amendment to that by removing number 3, section C, subsection 3, paragraph 2. That's the specific one that identifies the sidewalk assessment amounts. So I would just, if we're going to approve this, recommend that we identify that sidewalk assessment amount in the resolution of intent and just strike that out since that's no longer going to be applicable.
Albert, thank you. This is a resolution. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Welcome.
My name is Matt Metzger, and I'm the property owner at 26874 Sycamore Avenue that we're talking about tonight. I want to start out by first thanking Councilor Staley for giving me a call yesterday, because as of yesterday, I had no idea that this was going to be talked about at the meeting tonight. Albert has discussed that a notice had went out on November 25th. It was never signed for. I never received it, and so on a normal Tuesday night, I'd be sitting at home with my kids watching TV, and this would have got passed without my chance of stating my opposition. So thank you for that. To talk a little bit about what Albert said, I did meet with him in August, and he asked if he could come to my office and talk to me about annexing my property into the city. I agreed. I want to state I am not against city growth. I'm not against being annexed into the city. I am against the way we're going about doing this. I had 2 simple questions for Albert at the time. I would like to know the pros of being annexed into the city. I'd like to know the cons of being annexed into the city. The list of pros, basically cheaper water. I don't use that much water. I'm not going to recover these costs. It's just not going to happen. The cons, we saw the cons, the cost, the real estate taxes, all these things. It's a burden. That's a big amount of money to be spending on this, whatever the final dollar amount is going to be. So after those discussions, I just wasn't interested in being annexed into the city at that time. That was my mistake. I guess at that time I realized or looking back on it now, I maybe should have gotten a lawyer to walk me through this process. I didn't know this was all going to be taking place. Because I called over yesterday and we had a talk, and apparently in August, I could have filed a petition to try and stop this at that time. Again, if I would have known that or realized that, I would have done that. And so that's why, again, tonight I'm asking you, those are my intentions. If I could go back to August, I would file that petition to vote no against this. There's a development on the west side of Sioux Falls, I think you're all aware of, Prairie Meadows. The city's been trying to annex that property into the city for a number of years. In order to make that happen, you need 75% of the people in favor of that annexation. And I think right now it's 10 or 15%. It's a small number. I'm one homeowner. I'm 100% against my property being annexed into the city. What makes Prairie Meadows different than my property? I don't know, but I'm 100% against being annexed in at this time. There hasn't been a city forced annexation in, well, 13 or 14 years. Why me? Why now? I don't understand that. There's a horse farm on the corner of 57th and Southeastern. I think you all know the property. He's, from what I know, he's being annexed into the city right now willingly at this point in time. For the last 10 years, there's been development all around him, and no one's forced him into the city. One counselor drove out to my house today and stood in my driveway, and if you look to the south, the pictures that we weren't shown, everything was looking facing north when Albert showed the pictures. If you look south, if you look east, if you look west, the development we're talking about is still a ways away. That apartment building, between being the apartment building, there's still a bean field there. There's still a farm there. There's still area that needs to be developed before it gets to my property. That's what I don't understand. Why are we at this point where we're forcing me into doing something that I'm not ready to do? Will I do this at some point? I will. I just not happy with the way this process has played out. I guess I'll leave it at that right now. I'm asking you to vote no on this. Those are my intentions. Back in August, if I could have filed a petition, I would have done that. I can correct that now by getting all of you to vote no on this annexation. Thank you.
Mr. Metzger, thank you as well. Appreciate it, sir. Folks, anybody else? Welcome.
Believe it or not, I've been waiting for this one all night. I've run into, I'm Bruce Danielson. I've run into a series of issues with the city for many years involving improper service of documents. And here you're taking away the rights this man has had to his property because it got lost in the mail. The check got lost in the mail. The notice got lost in the mail. There's a difference between sending something out certified versus registered. In the work that you were doing before you became mayor, you had to do things legally with registered mail. Certified mail doesn't cut it for anything. Certified just means it got sent. You have to go in, and I ask in this whole process, was anybody ever checked to see that there was a certification that that envelope got delivered? Registered, you'd have that card back from the post office saying that little green card that's always on a registered letter. And we don't have anything like that. South Dakota Supreme Court has held against the city on many issues because of improper service. The City of Sioux Falls does not follow state law. If you listen to Pam Nelson when she was here talking about being served by putting in a shopping news bag, and it ends up in her front yard. I've had that same situation. I have had items sent from the city's legal department to an envelope that's laying in my yard, or stuff that I've never seen. I've seen where service took a month to get from City Hall to Split Rock Road. And We have no proof on any part of these processes because somebody wants to get something done and they send it through whatever pre-sort service or something, but it doesn't, we don't ever have any proof that it actually left that building up at 9th and Dakota and went where it was supposed to be. Thank you.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council on this particular topic? Very good. Councilors? Councilor Neisert?
So, if possible, I do have a few pictures I was going to bring up. I did drive by the area today, and I was going to ask Albert, so there was a letter sent to him. Was there any proof of delivery? Do you keep receipts for that routinely?
Well, when we send these, again, the certified ones that we send are the green cards. So if they're signed for, then we get those green cards back. I sent 2 that day, one to Lincoln County, one to him. Lincoln County's returned to me within a few days of the sending. I have not received the other one back. But again, state law doesn't require that we have that signature spot back. And I can tell you from my past in the enforcement area that sometimes those cards are never returned back because sometimes the people who are supposed to receive them don't ever sign for them because they don't want to get the letter. And so with the enforcement side of things, with code enforcement, those things, you can't always rely on that. So not always required to make sure that that is signed for, because if you did, people who knew they were breaking the law for those things, not saying that's the case here at all, don't take me the wrong way, but if you knew the regulations then you wouldn't ever sign, you wouldn't have to get them.
So in this case, though, you had an email chain with him, plus I think you may have talked to him on the phone. Was there any follow-up to say, hey, did you get this letter? We're doing this?
Like I said, no, we took the policy of trying to make sure that for this annexation with all the others, we're going to do a standard procedure. So although this is only one, there are future ones where it might be 130 people. So an individual phone call, making sure that somebody got something, isn't typically something you would do for a 130 property annexation. It's not something I'm going to do for one single one. I'm going to treat everybody the same.
Okay. Is everything annexed all the way around?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so I just took some pictures from my car. So this is essentially across the street from him, and then if he can go through. So we're looking at his house up here. I'm to the south of him here, and this is all vacant going down. And you look at all of the vacancy behind him, except for essentially kind of one structure sort of going in. So if you can go to the next one. So then I'm just backed up a little bit more. It just kind of gives you more of a sense of just, okay, it's not very built up yet. Okay. Now this one here, I think I'm shooting from, you might have to help me, 57th Street, probably shooting sort of southbound. That's a big apartment complex. But notice there's a lot of development that hasn't even happened on the north of him there, and I don't know if I have any more yet. I had a lot, I just picked a sampling. And here's another one that just kind of shows a view of, so I think I'm essentially sitting in front of his house looking northbound on this one. So, and this is north. This is going into the city. And it may all be annexed, but I did note this. So I guess that leads me to the question, this one has, some of these drag out for years, and we haven't had a forced annexation in, you said 13 years. So why now on this one? And I mean, to go from an initial discussion to a forcible annexation in a matter of months when this can drag on for years?
Sure.
Why this one?
Well, when you look at the area, there's multiple factors that present a role, but in the area, it's the south and those areas, we already have preliminary plats for that entire area. And so when you think about what's it going to look like in 5 years, it could be potentially very different. So that's an actively developing area. But why this property? Why now? Well, we started our city-initiated program a few years ago. We've had good success in working with property owners, and each one is a unique property. Now this one, we look at it, is already receiving all city services essentially without paying a tax burden for it. They have city water, they have city sewer close by, they could hook up, the city street's already in place. City snow removal is not going to stop and not plow in front of the street. Those services are already being realized today.
There's a lot of properties in the city that get a number of services, and he's paying out of city rates, and I don't think he gets police and fire. You don't get that, I don't think, until you come
Fire, you're going to get by default because you have a joint agreement with the township for health and safety, so they're going to come save your house from a fire regardless.
So is this indicative of what we're going to see? Are we going to give people a couple months and then drop the hammer to bring everybody in now?
It's very individualized based, and typically, we start talking at the beginning of the year, so this is 12 months into when we first started our discussions on this one.
Okay, maybe my last one for now. So I look at it and it's all annexed, but then if your map is up to date, a lot of this hasn't been even platted.
North of the area, it's actively being platted, and we have, again, preliminary plats for the area.
But you're talking about maybe 5 years to take to develop. You don't know when they're going to come in and plat this, so it could just sit there for years to come. We don't know.
Sure, but again, the area to the north with the houses already developing with new houses. And so the ultimate question in my mind is you look at it, why treat this property different from the property 200 feet to the north where they are paying city taxes?
Okay.
So Albert, you're not considering him an island situation, are you?
I would, in my definition of island being 100% surrounded, I am considering his property an island. Yes.
Okay, because I thought those were like in community areas within the city of Sioux Falls that would have all residential or development around them.
Oh, no, we're using the annexed land to show those islands so that we can say where the city of Sioux Falls regulations are applicable and not applicable. So for instance, if you went across his property boundary, you wouldn't be able to burn trash. But if you go into his property, you would be able to burn trash.
Okay, so I've got some emails back from 2013 of the land use committees, and they're talking about Prairie Meadows. And it says here, without a petition, the other annexations without a petition are considered studies, and they take about 9 years to complete. And then Jeff Schmidt provided types of these annexations. I was able to go to the Prairie Meadows group this spring with Councilor Neisert, and we listened to these people, and my understanding is they've been having a back and forth thing since at least 2012, I think I have documents. So my question, I guess, is if Matt had gotten in, and I don't think that he understood what his options were in August. I trust this guy. I don't think he's lying to me. And let me just say to the council, I reached out to him. I emailed Mike Cooper this weekend because I had heard that this was kind of what we call a hostile annexation, and I was expecting that some homeowner was going to contact us to tell us why they didn't want this to happen, and we had heard nothing. And so I asked him, could I get the contact information for the homeowner, and he gave me his work address at a bank. So he's a reputable person. And I called him, and he knew nothing about this, which that was really concerning to me. Okay, but let's go back to the you've had the dialogue for a year compared with the Prairie Meadows. Let's say that he had the only reason he's in this predicament right now is because he misunderstood the petitioning aspect, right? Because if he had petitioned in August.
In August, what I described to him was there's two routes to annexation which we would like to talk about. One is a petitioned annexation where he submits a petition to be annexed, or one where he does not want to be annexed and we do a city-initiated annexation.
But so then how come he is playing out differently? He gets a different timeline than the Prairie Meadows people do.
Okay, when you compare that to Prairie Meadows, they're vastly different because Prairie Meadows is an existing rural subdivision with 90-some households. They have residential streets which need to be completely rebuilt, sewer lines, water lines which need to be installed, sidewalk which would need to be installed, street lights, those kind of things. The infrastructure needs of that one are much greater. I mean, when you look at that one, the average cost to a citizen out there, we estimated at between $30,000 and $50,000 a lot for assessments. Again, when you go over here, we're on an arterial street, and you're talking about assessments. I don't even have a sidewalk assessment anymore, so there's zero assessment on this one compared to Prairie Meadows at $30,000 and $50,000.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. My question, Albert, is when was he created to be an island? I hate this island term, but that's how we've referred to them. So, for example, here's his house. At what point was it decided to go around him and not annex him as you're moving with the land?
I'd have to look at the adjacent one. I believe all this one was done was since 2004. I don't have the exact date on, on the annexation for the property around him, but I believe the one to across the street to the west was our most recent annexation, though. I believe that was last year.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is here's his house, and here's all the property around him. When did you go past him? That was last year that those boundaries were changed?
There was multiple annexations in the area, so it depends on how you're defining how you went around him, because, for instance, the area to the north was probably annexed prior, and the area to the south was probably annexed after that fact. And again,
we kind of did it ourselves. I mean, we kind of went around him instead of saying, hey, we're looking at annexing. As we move, here's our plan and intent. Can we bring you on board and continue that conversation? My other thing is what is rezoned around? Is everything rezoned? Is it ag? Is it, can you show me that one again?
Yeah, let me go back to that one for you. Yeah, we, with annexations, when we're looking at new annexation proposals, this kind of island creation is definitely a really large, ideal. We talk to people about, if you want to annex this in, we really need you to work with these other property owners because we don't want to create these islands anymore. We need to work and get these taken care of sooner rather than later. And so in our conversations now, we definitely make that a very main proponent or early comment.
My question is what is the land south of him zoned?
Yeah. I don't think I have a map on here of that one right now. I just have the land use as required in this study. I can definitely pull it up for you, though, if we went to our thing, but I'd have to get back to you on the exact zoning. I have it, I just don't have it with me right here, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then I guess my last question, Mr. Mayor, if I can. Before the sidewalks were put in, was he notified, like, hey, we're putting these sidewalks in for you, what do you think? Or, I mean, is it just, we're putting in the sidewalks and, oh, by the way, now you have to pay for it?
From what I understand on the sidewalk implementation, at the very earliest 2014, when we started talking with him about the project, sidewalks were discussed at that point as well.
But did he say, yay, I'm for the sidewalks, or what happened? I mean, that's my question is did we just do it?
I don't know. And again, there's a $0 assessment for the sidewalks that we're proposing at this point.
I understand that. I just am trying to figure out how this kind of got lost. I mean, I just have an issue with this. I just think, I don't know. I just am struggling with this, and I think that it's a little rushed with the first one in 13 years, and we're just going to force him to do that. I don't know. I think we can do better. I just think we can.
Councilor Silber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Taking Mr. Metzger at his word that he has not been properly informed of these proceedings, I mean, am I making that noise?
It's me.
Oh, sorry. Would there be any harm in bringing this back up in a couple of weeks and letting him get his ducks in a row and looking at it again, or?
Depends on how you look at it. I mean, there is another public hearing coming up with an actual resolution to an annex, so you definitely already have a built-in second hearing process anyways. So it depends on how you look at it. You definitely could do whatever you want to do on the intent to annex, but we have to do a resolution of annexation before it actually becomes effective. So there is also, regardless of what happened tonight, that public hearing process too.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Silber, did you want to make that recommendation?
Make a move to defer to January. Do I look at the calendar here? What do we got coming up? Move to defer to Tuesday, January 3rd.
Been a motion to defer until Tuesday, January 3rd. Is there a second?
Second, Erpenbach.
Been seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Any discussion on the motion to defer?
Mr. Mayor, I really think we can handle this tonight. I think there's some recommendations that we can make, and I'd like to see us move forward and not defer it.
Any more discussion on the deferral?
I'm sorry.
On the deferral, Councilor Neitzer?
Yes. I just want to be clear about procedure. If we vote no on the deferral, do we go back to dealing with it? Mm-hmm. And we have to do something? Okay, thank you.
Sure. Albert, to Councilor Neitzer's question, if this is deferred, what type of work is going to take place from now until the deferral date is recommended by Councilor Selberg. Give the council some, I'm going to say, comfort that some of these questions, comments, concerns will be addressed. And if they won't be, relay that as well.
I mean, from what I can tell from the concerns we've already kind of brought in, I definitely, in that time, could figure out and get you a map of the exact current zoning districts that are around that property. But beyond that, I feel like we've provided most answers to most of their questions already for that one. So I don't think any additional work at this point would be done between now and then to provide additional answers.
Okay, very good. That was an honest answer. Councilor Staley, is this on the deferral?
Well, if this man were to get an attorney, how does that play into this whole thing? Because Albert did tell him that had he gotten an attorney, and he should have gotten an attorney back in August, I believe. So could that throw a wrench in the whole thing if this man gets some legal
I
representation?
never advise people they should get an attorney or shouldn't get an attorney. I say you definitely can if you want to. Just like tonight's meeting, if you want to have an attorney present, you definitely can, but you don't need to. I never try to advise anybody on legal advice on when to seek it. So we may have gotten our signals crossed when I presented the information to him in his office, but it was never my intention to let him know that he needed to hire an attorney. Sorry, that came across that way.
Councilor Erpenbach?
Thank you. The deferral, I think, is a nod to your concerns, Councilor Staley, in terms of giving Mr. Metzger an opportunity to have time to work through the details. The deferral would move step one, as Albert's described them to us. We have step one is this intent to extend the boundaries, and then step two would be the actual annexation. It would just move this step one a month ahead, so it gives Mr. Metzger the opportunity to think through the things that he needs to do. If he needs to, however needs to manage this, it just honors that struggle that you found, and that's what I appreciate in the deferral, and that's why I would support a deferral.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, a question,
Either
Councilor
Diane Best or David Fifley. If, hypothetically speaking, if this fails, the whole motion fails, everything fails, the whole number 40 fails, how long until the process starts over again? What's that timeline to wait? Is it 6 months? Is it 30 days? Is it, I mean, they could come back in 2 months. There's not a 6-month waiting period per state law or anything like that.
Councilor Erickson, David is shaking his head, and I saw a shake of the head from Albert too. So it's whenever, is that right, Albert?
Yeah, from what we understand, looking through it, there's no set deadline that if it failed today that you had to wait 180 X amount of days to do it again.
However, start over.
However, from a staff perspective, we view this as we're looking at trying to get what kind of direction is the council giving us on these kind of annexations from this time moving forward as well. So from a staff perspective, I don't want to waste your time, keep on bringing back the same thing until you guys finally say yes to me.
Right.
That's not my goal.
Right. And I appreciate that.
I certainly think you're getting some perspective on what the council is wanting going forward, Albert. If you haven't taken notes, I have. How's that?
Mr. Mayor, if I might,
Councilor Buck, on the deferral.
I haven't consulted my colleague to my right, but I would like to make a friendly amendment to his deferral to defer also that second step, the actual annexation, defer that to February 7th, because his notes, as Councilor Kiley has pointed out to me, his notes say that second step is set as January 17th. So my motion would be, a friendly amendment to the motion would be to defer that second step to February 7th.
Point of order, can we take action on something that's not on the agenda?
What?
We can move the agenda item, though.
David.
Move an item to that.
Oh, I gotcha.
We can't defer the second step because it's not on this agenda.
Thank you for being smarter than me. Thank you, Tamara. I appreciate it. I would withdraw my attempt at this. Hear my support in it, though.
I think there's been good discussion on the deferral. So with that in mind, there has been a motion to defer this item until a later date, and it was January 3rd?
Yes.
January 3rd of 2017. All those in, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Nitzert.
No.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
No.
Staley.
No.
Erickson.
No.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
The mayor votes yes. That is passed 5-4. I think that's all we need, right, David, on that? Thank you. Very good. Item 42.
Item 41
Or
is
41.
a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the legal description of annexation resolution number 10316, annexation 4841, 2016, Berkey Tract 12, South Klein Avenue and West 48th Street.
And this one is for an annexation that we had through our program as well, but they petitioned to annex, and the county identified that the legal that we utilized in that adoption for annexation was incorrect for their filing purposes, so they identified what the correct legal should have been, and so we're just amending that one. So again, this is for a petition to annexation. We're just correcting the legal that we used as per the county's request.
Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item? Council?
Move approval.
Second, Erpenbach.
A motion to approve this item, this resolution, seconded by as well. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 43.
Item 42 is a resolution establishing a pay-for-performance program for the City Council appointed positions of budget analyst, city clerk, internal auditor, internal audit manager, and the City Council operations manager.
Good evening, Jim David, Operations Manager for the council. This is the annual resolution that sets the salary range for council-appointed staff. Each salary range actually reflects a 1.5% COLA increase or cost of living adjustment. Happy answering your questions.
Is there anybody in the audience who want to speak to this item? Councilors?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Rolfing.
It's been a motion to approve this item by Councilor Bach, seconded by Councilor Nitzert. Councilor, did you have a question?
I was just going to say it was kind of ironic that you made the presentation to give yourself a raise. But
Does it every year.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Nitzert.
yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 43.
Item 43, a resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Local 814 of the International Association of Firefighters.
Mayor and City Council, Bill O'Toole, Human Resources Director. I'm pleased to announce that the City of Sioux Falls has tentatively reached an agreement, a 2-year agreement with Local 814, the International Association of Firefighters, covering the calendar years 2017 and 2018. This labor agreement covers approximately 190 positions, including all firefighters, fire apparatus operators, fire inspectors, fire EMS educator, fire captains, and emergency vehicle technicians for all wages, hours, and conditions of employment for those ranks. We're also pleasantly here to tell you that the fire union voted on this tentative agreement just recently and approved that contract 94-1. I'm going to spare you a lot of the details on some of the technicalities, but of course, one of the issues that are always of significance and importance that we want to relay to you as it relates to the adoption of this contract is the personnel costs, the wages that go with these agreements. What we agreed to in this 2-year contract is a 1.5% cost of living adjustment for each year for the tenure of this agreement, with the exclusion of the rank of the FAO. The FAO, we agreed to a 2.2% increase over that same time period. And let me just briefly explain why we decided to make that differentiation for that particular rank. In the previous contract, the one we're living under right now, we negotiated a decrease in that rank to the equivalent of 1.4%. And it had some unintended consequences, quite frankly. And when we got to the bargaining this time, we agreed to correct that exchange between that rank. Again, the 0.7 for 2017 and 0.7 for 2018 would restore that to the prior position. and bring us back to where we were before. The total cost for the additional 1.5% of the 2017 budget is about $245,000, and in line with the already approved 2017 budget. I also wanted to point out and publicly acknowledge that there's been a significant change in the leadership and the culture with this particular bargaining unit. Our negotiations now are exceptionally productive. They're collaborative. They're very creative. There's exchange of ideas in order to achieve real solutions. And I can't emphasize enough how beneficial this change has been for the collective bargaining process and our work with this unit. And I just wanted to say that publicly. If the council does have any specific questions, Chief Sedaris is present, as well as Captain Mike Gramlich, who is the president of Local 814. And with that, we'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Bill, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there anybody in the audience wanting to speak to this item? Thank you. Council.
Move approval, Starr.
Second, Staley.
Council Starr has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Staley. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, firefighters. Thank you, and thank you, council. Item 44.
Item 44 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, Chris Lydell, Jason Snyders, Main Street Business Improvement District Board, Cindy Paleshi, Sioux Falls Sports Authority, Matt Burns, Don Kearney, Curtis Sowell, and Mary Thompson.
Anybody in the audience want to speak to this item?
Move approval, Erickson.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve.
Second, Selberg.
Seconded by Councilor Selberg. If no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson, Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, council. Item 45.
Item 45 is a report of the December 1st, 2016 Notice of Transfer of Appropriations within major organizational units.
Thank you. It should be noted the councilors started their day very, very early today. And for the city of Sioux Falls, it is almost 11 o'clock p.m. That's nighttime on a Tuesday, and your council's still working hard for you. Council, would anybody want to go home?
Move to adjourn.
Been a motion to adjourn by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Council Chair Rolfing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This Sioux Falls City Council meeting is adjourned. Make it a great night, Sioux Falls.